think we're going to start. We're close, but we've got paper copies and other ways of doing this. So we'll begin our regular meeting of the City Council today. Welcome everybody here. We excuse our city manager, Gary Esplin, who's out of town today. And filling in for him is our Director of Administrative Services, Deanna Berklasic. So she will be leading us through the agenda today as we get to that point. Otherwise, we have a full council. We are missing our city recorder today as well, and we have Renee Fleming filling in for us. Thank you, Renee. Does a great job. And anyway, I'm trying to think. Anything else I need to say today, folks? Oh, I'll say this later. Let's start, if we could, with Councilman Gil Almquist leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. After which, let's see, is it Michael Cruz? There you are, Michael. From the Universalist Unitarian Fellowship will lead us. I got him backwards. Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, who will lead us in an invocation. Gil?
Please all rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mayor Pike and council people, for your service in making St. George the greatest city in the nation.
Has a nice ring to it. Thank you.
The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King once said, "Life's most urgent question is, what are you doing for others?" Everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to know about Plato and Aristotle to serve. You don't have to know Einstein's theory of relativity to serve. You only need a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. Dr. Kent Keith has 8 commandments. Don't worry about that word because you'll like them. People are often illogical, unreasonable, and self-centered. Love them anyway. If you are successful, you may win false friends and true enemies. Succeed anyway. The good you do today may be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway. Honesty can make you vulnerable. Be honest anyway. The biggest men and women with the best ideas can be shot down by small men and women. Think big anyway. Some people favor underdogs, but follow the top dogs. Keep fighting for the underdogs, like the All Abilities Park. People that really need service may attack you. Serve people anyway. Give your community the best you have, and some may kick you in the teeth. Go to the dentist and keep giving your best anyway.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that, Michael. Okay, have to mention something Mark Mortensen showed me a little earlier today, council and members of the public. Let's see if I can find this so I can do it right. So today, Money Magazine, we learned, actually it's been a few days ago, they named St. George one of the best places to retire in 2015. And in fact, we are the winner of the Great Outdoors category, places to retire. And they highlight our trails, paved and unpaved. Let's see. Hundreds of miles of trails for biking and hiking. Mount Zion, that's good. A national park is a few miles away. Also remains affordable compared to more well-known retirement destinations. And they list several of our different figures and income and costs and property tax and so forth. Anyway, just another thing, it's kind of nice to know. I know they contacted Mark about this a while ago. Thanks, Mark, for providing them information so we could win. So anyway, also, let's see, coming up Saturday, Michelle, are you aware of an event Saturday we might want to talk about? Do you remember what it is?
Yes, but what are they officially calling it? Bruce, do you know what they're officially calling it?
It's the third annual Veterans,
Honoring veterans?
honoring Veterans Day at the park.
Vernon Worthen Park, right?
And it starts at 8 a.m. and I think goes till 3, and they end with a motorcycle ride.
With the Patriot Guard Riders. Just wanted to mention that. We appreciate our veterans and everything they do, and our Veterans Advisory Committee that participates in those things as well. So thanks, Michelle, for helping with them and all the things that we're trying to work on with them. Also, just might mention again, coming up in the not so distant future, July, 3rd, we'll have another George Street Fest. It'll be even bigger than last time as it ties into the 4th of July. And we have some great celebrating to do on the 4th of July. Canyon Media is a major sponsor of the events that will be in the Sun Bowl with another concert. Like we've had the last few years, fireworks, they join us in co-sponsoring. And I know there are other sponsors as well, but anyway, get your plans in place. There will be a parade that morning, and all the activities going on as usual in Vernon Worthen Park. And so anyway, hope that that people will know you can stay in St. George on the 4th, and there will be cool things to do, even if the weather's not so cool. All right. I don't think I have anything else that I need to hit, so let's go to our agenda. Deanna, should we I guess we start with the consent calendar.
Yeah, we can go ahead and start with the consent calendar. Just a couple items to mention, though, is item 6A is a consider approval of a request to expand the St. George Art and Studio Tour. And we'd like to table that item tonight. The applicant is out of town unexpectedly and hasn't been able to come back on time. So we're going to go ahead and table that. And then when I'm finished with the consent calendar, I'd like to move item 6J, the presentation from Victim Services, up just immediately after the consent calendar. So the consent calendar is the financial report for May 2005. Or 2015, excuse me. We don't want to step back to May 2005. Anyway, that's 11 months into the fiscal year, or 92% of our fiscal year. And right now, things look all right. We are up in the general fund as far as our sales taxes are up 5.86%. Overall, the general fund revenues are up almost 3.5% over the prior fiscal year. The revenues are just a little bit behind budget, and that's because our personal property taxes, they're not due to the county until May. And so there's about a month lag before when we see that, and then it jumps us up to where we should be by the end of June. The expenditures are actually 82% below the budget, and where we're at 92% of the fiscal year, we're doing pretty well with our spending. The graphs of where we're at are attached. I'll just point out one thing that you may have noticed is the graph for the wastewater fund is not oversight. Expenditures are out ahead of revenues right now, and that's because we took advantage of advance paying a bond off early. We looked at our capital financing needs and our cash flows, and we went ahead and paid that off, and we saved about $42,000 to do that. And so our expenditures are higher than our revenues at this point, but we did have the cash balances to do that and the fund balances to do that, in case you might have that question. And that's really about it. If you have any other questions.
Council?
Well, I believe SwitchPoint, which has its own budget category, I thought was an amazing story there again as contributions keep coming in and requiring less of other funds. And I know that police department often has people there which are part of shifts as well as volunteering, which is another amazing gift as departments step up. But, I mean, that's a bright point in the entire budget. It's not that the whole budget isn't bright, but that especially
Yeah.
shows a giving nature to what's happening at Switch Point.
And our revenues do lag. It's on a reimbursement basis
Yeah.
with those grants, and so our revenues will lag the expenditures. And where this is our first year, there's going to be a little bit of time delay, so that will reflect by the fiscal year end,
Great.
hopefully.
Any other questions in terms of the financial report, council?
Mayor, I move that we approve the financial report as presented for May of 2015.
Second.
Motion by Gil and a second by Joe. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, so we'll move to item 6J, staff reports, and we'll ask Alyssa Urzi, she's with the Victim Services Division, to come up and give us, this is an annual report that she gives as part of the receiving the grant.
Welcome, Alyssa. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pike, council members. Thank you for your time. Again, my name is Alyssa Urzi. I'm proud to say that I've been working as the Victim Services Coordinator at the St. George Police Department for almost 3 years now. I'm not alone. I have 2 other staff that work with me, and they are just as dedicated, Nadine Davis and Nadia Crawford. Thank you for your support in helping us staff our office so that we can better serve victims. What I'd like to do this time, it's a little bit different, is I'd like to share with you a letter that I received from a victim and her family. I have changed the names, of course, but it kind of provides a snapshot of what we do from the victim's perspective. And so I thought that was very valuable, and I wanted to share that with you. Okay, it starts, I'm writing this letter in regards to the victim advocate and the integral role that she has played as we have dealt with a domestic violence case involving our daughter, Lisa. The violence against Lisa occurred at the end of last year. Her estranged husband was charged with aggravated assault. Up until this point in our lives, navigating the criminal court system had not been one of our life experiences. We were overwhelmed by the incident itself, knowing how close we'd come to losing this beloved daughter, let alone how we needed to jump into the process of how to protect her and deal with the legal system. The next morning, we were still reeling in disbelief and fear as we were informed that the perpetrator of the violence was already out of jail, literally hours after he'd been arrested. We then received a call from the victim advocate from the police department. It was so impressive that she was already reaching out to us the very next morning. We would not have known that there was someone like her that could be such a difference and make such a significant, be a significant resource in our lives. Her steady and kind manner as she guided us and answered our questions brought us to our first feeling of calm. She explained the needed steps applying for a protective order and what the process of moving forward with the system would be. No doubt the victim advocate has followed this same model in countless cases, many much more serious than this one. Yet she treated us and our daughter like this was the most important thing she had to take care of. We never felt like we were just one more case to be checked off the list. We truly felt like she cared about Lisa and her children's well-being. Court can be so impersonal and difficult. The victim advocate was the person who kept it personal for us. She was the one we could count on. She was there at important hearings, and she was that safe person who we knew would be there to give us direction. She gave us the courage to keep going despite the continual setbacks and delays. We called her often to ask for clarification on an aspect of the process that was so foreign to us. She always explained things in a way that we could understand, and we would know afterward the specific steps we needed to take. Her guidance was gentle yet confident. She offered a great deal of wisdom and insight that eased the difficulties of the situation. She was a trusted confidant and a friend. Following her guidance always simplified the situation and saved many steps that made the difficult process much easier on many fronts. She kept us informed on the court dates and appearances, and on occasion, we'd not even received that information from anywhere else. We have a business that keeps us up north, and Lisa has employment in St. George, so that keeps her residence here. It gave us some peace knowing that the victim advocate was there when we couldn't be, and would seek answers to whatever difficulties that Lisa was experiencing. Her positive feedback about our willing support kept us wanting to continue, even though in our eyes, it didn't seem to be making a difference at times. We appreciate her loyalty, her professionalism, and her compassion, all of which contributed greatly to us being able to see this year-long process through to its conclusion. I was really happy to receive that letter, and I sincerely hope that I can make that impression, and our advocates can make that impression on every victim. With that, I want to invite the public to call us if you're a victim of a crime, or if you have questions about domestic violence, call us. We have options and resources to offer you. Our number is 435-627-4399. Don't hesitate to call.
Say that again, would you, the number?
435-627-4399.
Thank you.
Lastly, I just want to thank Chief Stratton, Deputy Chief Farnsworth, Captain Whitehead, and Lieutenant Berklasich. They, along with many others at the police department, really value our department and victims, and they continue to make sure we have the resources that we need to help those victims in St. George. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa. It's clear that you have a passion for this and for helping people, so thank you very much, and please thank your colleagues as well. Council, any comments?
Yeah, super.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks very much. Chief, thank you as well. Appreciate the support of the police department on this. Okay.
All right, so we'll go on to bid openings. The first bid opening, item 2A, is to consider the award of a bid for the Middleton Wash Trail repairs. And the Middleton Wash Trail is the trail that kind of runs behind the mall and all the way down to East Riverside Drive, ties in there. And during the August and September 2014 floods, it was heavily damaged. And so this is the cost to repair those. And one of the things I want to mention is that this when the estimates were prepared and submitted for the budget, for the fiscal year 15 budget that we're currently in, they were submitted as though FEMA would come out and repair it back to pre-disaster conditions. And we've hired an engineering firm, and they've determined that it was undermined more than originally thought. And so we've got to do some erosion protection. With that said, it's going to be about $100,000 more. So if you choose to approve this item, we'd want to approve it based upon the 2016 budget being increased by $100,000, and that's further on down into the agenda items. But you can still approve the bid now, subject to that.
Subject to approving the final budget. Okay.
Correct. Okay.
Any questions, council? This has come up. We've talked about it before during the budget work meetings, as well as we've had several citizens come forward and ask us, because this has been a couple of years, I think, since this happened, and
Right.
and so it's good to be getting to it. We want to fix it and fix it correctly. And so, any questions on this bid, or you want to go over it a little
I'll
bit?
just go over the bid results. The bid results came in with B. Hansen being the low bid. Their bid was $241,000, so we are recommending that B. Hansen be awarded.
Questions for Connie? If not, ready for a motion.
Mayor, I walked this trail just after the damage as best as you could walk it and be safe. And so the original estimate, I thought, what would be low considering what was there. So this is no surprise to me, and I'll make the motion that we award the Middleton Wash Trail repairs to B. Hansen Construction for $241,000, subject to the budget adjustment.
Okay, motion by Gil, second by Betty. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, bid item number 2B is to consider the approval of a professional service agreement to relocate the existing Elksfield baseball field to Bloomington Park. And the intent there is to increase the size of one of the existing fields to accommodate the loss of use at the Elks Field. And so this is a professional services agreement with Sunrise Engineering, I believe, and it does include construction management, so design, engineering, bid, spec, award, and so forth, and all the way through to the construction management and final product.
Excellent. We've had great success with Sunrise in the past with designing things like this, including pickleball, so that sounds good. Connie?
Okay, the bid amount for this contract would be $41,600 for Sunrise Engineering.
I believe it's subject to legal's review at this time.
Right.
Council, any questions? Again, this is in the current Bloomington Park, and the idea is to remodel and extend one of those there so that it can work better for a baseball field and replace Elks Field. So,
Mayor, I would like to move that we approve the professional service agreement to relocate the existing Elks baseball field to the Bloomington Park and award this to Sunrise Engineering for $41,600 with a tiny little, well, subject to legal review, and hopefully with the least advice of Kent Garrett, who has lovingly groomed that field for his whole life here in St. George, and been a real advocate. So he loves to make sure that they're positioned in the right direction, and I believe he has already spoken with Kent Perkins about that.
very good.
Second with a question, Mayor.
Okay, so we have a motion by Betty and a second by Gil. Questions, comments? Gil?
The document from Sunrise has some assumptions in it, and the assumptions are very logical, but maybe we should make an assumption of our own that since they are from Washington City, that various reimbursable expense schedules will not be applied to the bid. They're generally for companies that operate from a field office at a greater distance. For example, per diem meals, $35 per day. Connie, can you comment on that? I don't believe that should be in there.
I think this is just a generic form, and that will be, I'm sure when legal looks at this, that they will make sure that that's striked out, because it's not
Good.
applicable.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, it's a generic form.
Okay.
They send.
Yeah, generic forms carry a lot of weight in
That's right.
legal battles
That's
too,
right.
so that's why I just want to make sure it's not there. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, item number 2C is to consider the approval of a professional service agreement for the environmental assessment of the Gunlock Arsenic Treatment Plant site. And what this is in order to blend the city's water, the well water, and the Gunlock well water to comply with arsenic standards, we do need to build a treatment plant. And as part of that initial process is to create an environmental assessment study because it is on federal property. And this would include archaeological survey and a cultural resources survey and prepare that part of the process in order to get the wheels in motion. And I believe the company is for Bush and not Bush and Gudrell, Alpha
Alpha.
Engineering,
Alpha.
sorry.
Connie, anything else to add to that?
The amount of the contract not to exceed for this project is $34,699 for the professional services agreement.
Questions, council? Again, is-
Alpha's done this before, a lot.
Yeah.
I think their background is impeccable, so.
And this is exciting to get this started.
Yeah, it's reached that point where, you know, it's, the technology appears to make it appropriate to be looking into treating this so we can use that water more efficiently and legally.
And again, we're talking parts per billion, right?
Yep. I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the professional service agreement with Alva Engineering not to exceed $34,699.
Second.
Motion by Jimmy, second by Joe. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, the next item is 2D, to consider an award of a bid to construct 2 public restrooms and a small office at the Suntran Transit Center. They're on, I believe it's 100 South and near 1000 East. And this item is partially funded by FAA fees, or FTA fees, at an 80%, 20% city match. And so our out-of-pocket cost would be the 20% of $16,289, and the total 80% cost would be $81,447.32. And this will roll over into next year's budget. And there are some projects that we are going to delay next year in order to accommodate rolling this forward. So I'll let Connie finish.
Okay, this, we did get some pretty good bids on this, but JMI Construction came in with the best bid. Their bid amount was $81,447.32, which was the low bid. So we're recommending that it's JMI Construction.
That doesn't include the alternates,
No,
but,
it does not.
and so we're not recommending going with the alternates?
Right, correct.
Okay.
It does include the paper.
The what?
The nice thing about this is, remember when we were bidding them for parks and they were about the same size? They were always over 100 grand, so this is a good bid.
Yeah, it's a good bid.
Any questions, council? Again, okay, go ahead.
I will make a motion to approve the bid with JMI Construction to construct the 2 restrooms and small office at the Suntran Transit Center in the amount of $16,289.46. And does that need to be subject to approval of the final budget since it's going over?
It does not.
Okay.
No.
Second.
Motion by Michelle, second by Betty. Any discussion on the motion?
Do we have to have the motion for the total amount or just our portion?
Just our portion, I believe.
Well, we could probably, Sean, do it for the total amount.
It would be the total amount of the
Because,
contract,
yeah, that's-
even if we're receiving funds from another
Okay,
source.
so I think we need to amend that motion.
$81,447.32.
Second.
Okay, so with that amended motion and second, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mayor, it is past 5:30, so if you want to go into public hearings, we can go ahead and do that.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Start
Okay.
with,
Let's start with public hearing 3A, is to consider vacating a public utility and drainage easement located at the rear of the Lot 1 of Trubuck, I can't say that, Trubuck Estates, and to adjust the lot line number 1 to the south. And so we would be vacating our easements and then relocating our easements to accommodate this. And Wes will go ahead and present that.
Right, this one is right here behind Sean. So right now, this is 2 parcels, 1 parcel here, 1 parcel here with the property line here. The applicant wants to build a structure right there. He would not meet the setbacks relative to a property line. So he's going to come in and basically merge that into one lot. The green represents the new easements that he'll be granting. These ones on the sides obviously would be our standard public utility easement. This area back here, there isn't an existing sewer main that runs right through here, and then there's also that NRCS wall that was constructed back in '05 when the flood happened. And so this easement would then give a blanket easement for sewer, for maintenance of that sewer line and for the NRCS wall.
Questions on that, council?
Straight up good.
When you said they give us access to that sewer line, where does that access come from? Somewhere on another piece of property?
Yeah, probably
Okay.
so. Yeah.
Gil was saying he had to crawl through it, but that doesn't sound too good. Okay, any other questions before we open the public hearing on this? All right, I will open the public hearing on the item 3A for any who may have come to make comments on this item. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Come back to you, council, for any further discussion, questions, or action.
Mayor, I move that we approve the applicant's request for the easement vacation on the property located at Lot 1 of Trebrook Estates, and then following the other reconsideration of easements that will be created as outlined on the description and the plot plan.
Second.
Motion by Gil, second by Jimmy. Any discussion? Sean, do we cover that okay? All in favor, then, this is an ordinance requiring a roll call vote. Starting with Betty, say aye.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, item 3C, or 3B, is a public hearing to consider vacating a utility easement along 3000 East at approximately 2900 South. And this was a 6-inch water line feed that when 3000 East was developed, we actually moved the 6-inch water line into 3000 East. So therefore, this easement is no longer needed, and we're basically abandoning the easement.
Back to
Makes
the
sense. Any
original.
questions? Good to clear these things up as they come along. Okay, if there are no questions, I'll open the public hearing for any who've come to offer opinion on or comments on this item, number 3B on the agenda. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and come back to you, council.
I'll make a motion to approve the vacation of the utility easement along 3000 East at approximately 2900 South.
Second.
Motion by Jimmy, second by Betty. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, again, roll call vote, starting with Joe. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, moving to 3C, a public hearing to consider vacating an underground sewer easement along the south side of the Virgin River located between Bloomington and Sun River. And this is another housekeeping item. We did have that sewer easement, but when we built when we put in the sewer, we also put a trail over the top of that. And that new easement was recorded, but the previous easement that we went away from was not taken off of the county's records. So this is basically allowing us to formally vacate that initial easement.
Wes?
Can I just comment on that?
Yeah.
So if you look on that sheet there, that's the easement. There actually were two easements. There was one in 2007 and then another one in 2009. As they've laid out the sewer, the line, when it was actually constructed, actually is not actually in the easements. So they're vacating those two easements and they're coming forward with a new easement that's been surveyed in on those manholes so that it actually matches the sewer line. And so they'll grant a new easement across their property here where the sewer line crosses their property. On the north side, they've already dedicated that to the city, so there won't need to be an easement. The easement will just need to be on that portion of their property.
Makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Any questions, council? Gil?
Wes, this doesn't affect art trail easement anywhere, does it?
No, as I recall, the trail has been already dedicated to the city, and so that's that portion on the north side of their subdivision.
Right.
So that property's already been dedicated to the city, and so no, we wouldn't have to do that.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, then I'll open the public hearing for this item. For any of who have come to express comments on this, let's see, this is 3C? Yeah, 3C. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and come back to you, council, again for your action.
Mayor, I'd like to move that we vacate the utility easement along 300 East at approximately 2900 South. No,
Next
that's
one
the
down.
That's
Yeah.
the one. Okay. Vacate the underground sewer easement along the south side of the Virgin River, located between Bloomington and Sun River.
Very good.
Second.
Motion by Betty, second by Joe. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, roll call vote, starting with Betty this time. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, we'll move to item 3D, is a public hearing to consider an amendment to the PDR Planned Development Residential Zone to construct a 4-story condominium project on approximately 5.7 acres located at 1151 South Plantations Drive. And this is also known as the Estancia. Did I say that right?
Yes. And
Project.
this item's actually been tabled
Okay.
due to some issues at the last minute regarding property and so forth, so they've actually tabled it to another meeting.
So we would need a motion to continue the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Gill, second by Jimmy. Any discussion? This is to table the motion, the public hearing on item 3D. All in favor, starting with Joe, say aye.
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 Thank you. Motion carries.
Okay, so we'll move on to 3E, and it's a public hearing to consider amendments to the fiscal year 2014-15 budget. And this would be our last budget opening of the fiscal year. We need to do them all before June 30th. And there's not too many this time on this list. The first one, does everyone have it there in front of them? Okay. I'll just go through these rather quickly then. The first one is for the Electric Theater, and it's to fund the upfront office furnishings, computers, computer machine, et cetera. The second item, and that's the first item is for $47,000. And the second item is due to some unexpected retirements, or excuse me, I'm on the wrong item, for some reorganization costs, and we relocated the business licensing staff downstairs to be with our planning and zoning and our building department. There's been some costs incurred in that, and so we're asking for a budget opening in the amount of $16,000. And number 3 is due to unforeseen retirements of 3 employees. We do pay out their vacation and a small portion of their sick leave. But combined with those 3 retirements, we're asking for a budget opening of $29,000. And then number 4 is sales tax revenues have come in better than we originally budgeted. And so we'd like to increase the budget for the sales tax revenues to recognize that fact. And that increase is in the amount of $500,000. And so items number 1 through 4 are for the general fund. And other items are number 5 to the Park Impact Fund. And this is for the St. James Trailhead to bore an irrigation line under the Fort Pierce Wash. And originally we thought we would be able to put that across the pedestrian bridge. And in looking at that further, we just feel like it's a better solution to bore it under the river. It will protect it from future high flood waters, and it will also not put overbearing load on the bridge itself. So the request is to increase that project by $35,000, and we do have increase in park impact fees in there to compensate that. Number 6 is we just accelerated the payment for the replacement airport. This is the last payment that we had on property we purchased from Sitla. And it made more sense to save interest on accelerating that last payment, and plus we could get the grant monies from the FAA to reimburse us earlier than later. So it just made sense to save that interest where the grant monies were available. And so that's in the amount of $762,664. And again, it's funded by the grant money from the FAA, all these acronyms. The number 7 is for unbilled utility services, and we'll be talking about that in a minute. But basically, our water department used more energy this year than we had anticipated to run the city pumps that then send the water to our citizens and so forth. And so they were supplementing some of the water that we actually purchased from the Conservancy District, and the amount of that is $185,000. And then lastly is to increase our 2010 flood fund. FEMA approved an additional project to install vegetation along the Virgin River. So we're just recognizing the design and engineering fees that go along with that project. And that's in the amount of $17,000. And then the next couple of pages are for the RDA, so I'll hold those for that meeting.
Okay. Council, any questions on that? Of course, it's really nice to see the, transfer on the general sales tax revenues. It's always nice we try to budget conservatively, and it's nice when the revenues on sales tax come in higher, because that means the economy is doing better and people are here and shopping, and those are good things. So anyway, thanks for the detail. Any questions, Council?
Final payment to Sitla is also good on the airport.
Very good. Appreciate that you're always looking to save money when you can and paying things off early, and so that's great.
And that we have the ability to do that.
That's right.
That's great. It's a testament to the management that's been done over the years by the city manager and Deanna.
And there's a lot of others as part of that team, so.
And it's fun to have that positive in our budget adjustments.
Right.
Any other questions or comments? I do need to open a public hearing on this.
I just have one little thought, and it's just about the flood mitigation. It's been a while since we've had the flood, and it would be nice to know if we're all tied up as far as the work that we've done on our waters.
We just have that one project. It's called the revegetation project, and basically what happened is any projects that we did along the Virgin River, which extended from the Mill Creek electric plant all the way down to Bloomington, and we had trail projects, electric projects, sewer line projects, water line projects. Anywhere that we disturbed the ground, we're required to go back in and revegetate that. Because it's another federal agency that required us to revegetate that, FEMA then has to fund it. So essentially we had to wait until all those projects were completed before we knew the extent of the disturbance. We had to then ask for funding. And then because of the spawning and the nesting seasons, there's been some delays in the ability to get into the river. And we don't want to plant in the middle of the summer and stuff when our vegetation won't have as high of success if we plant in the fall and winter. So we're hoping to have this complete by February of 2016, and then that will wrap it all up. And I'm looking forward to that personally, to get that wrapped up.
Yeah.
And that was the 2010 flood?
That was 2010. 2005's wrapped up, and we've got one more project for 2012. That's great. So,
If anybody wants to see the results of that, and you drive south on I-15 and look to the right towards Bloomington, you'll see rows of nice green willows growing, and that's a result of the work being done down there.
Good question. Any others, Council, before I open the public hearing? Okay, so I'll open the public hearing for anyone who's come to offer comments on this item, number 3E. And again, this is regarding amendments proposed to the fiscal year 2014-15 budget.
That's correct.
Our last one of the fiscal year.
Yes.
Seeing none, I'll close that public hearing and come back to you, council, for your action.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve the amendments to the fiscal year 2014-15 budget.
Second.
Motion by Michelle, second by Gil. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, this is an ordinance requiring a roll call vote, I believe, or it's a resolution. Starting with Joe, all in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries.
No matter where you start, Mayor, I've come to the conclusion that I'm always third.
Should I start with you next time? I got one more.
It's okay.
All right.
It took me a while to figure that out.
All right, the next public hearing is to receive public input on the fiscal year 2015-16 budget, and also to take public input on the unbilled water and electric utility services that are provided to other city funds. So I'll go ahead and, excuse me just a second.
Hydrate.
So I'll just kind of lead into the unbilled utility services, just to kind of give you some background on that. In 2014, the state legislature enacted a new law that said that that municipalities needed to disclose to our water or our utility customers, and us having water and electric, those are the customers that we are disclosing to, any utility services that we are providing and not billing to other city facilities. And so that could be that we are providing water to our general fund in terms of watering parks, watering right-of-ways, watering golf courses, and providing electric services to our water department to enable them to run their pumps and so forth. And so there is some crossover where we do some give and take as far as the electric services. Those costs, because we do have to pay for the water from the Conservancy District, and we do have to pay for the energy through our different contracts, and we have to pay for the transmission of that energy. It does cost the water and electric department some, they do have some costs incurred in order to purchase those resources. And those costs are built into our rates for our electric and water department. And so if we were to bill those services, or let me kind of backtrack. Those costs are about $1.54 per month per citizen, so that's less than $19 a year that are built into the rates. If we were to bill each of those
Per customer.
per customer,
Not per citizen.
per customer.
Okay.
Thank you for that correction. If we were to bill those to the other departments, there would basically be an adjustment in rates from one department to another department. And the general fund, who does benefit from some of the water, we would either have to increase revenues somehow in the general fund, or we would have to reduce services to pay for that. And so this is a practice that many municipalities throughout the state, this is something that many of them do. And so the state legislature just wants us to communicate to our customers that this is currently being done. And so we sent out a letter last Thursday and Friday we sent out 35,000 letters to all of our customers and have informed them of this information. And hopefully the letter has worked, and we'd love to hear from the public, but we've only had about 20 comments, and only about 10 of those phone calls have been related to the letter. Others have been questions about giving us a change of address and so forth. And so we hope that the communication's been positive. So anyway, that's just an overview of that notice, and we do need to take public comment by the law.
And what we'll do is we will, as we've advertised it, we will receive public input on this in combination with the public input on the fiscal year 2015-16 budget. We'll do that through one hearing.
Right. So I'll go ahead and just give you a recapture of the budget. The budget by law is required to be adopted by June 22nd, and it's presented to the mayor and city council in the first city council meeting in May. And at that point, we did put that out on the city website. The preliminary budget has been available at the city recorder's office. And so it's available for the citizens to view and call and ask questions. As part of that process, during the month of May, the department heads can then meet with the mayor and city council during work meetings, the public work meetings, and explain their budget to you in further detail. One of the things I want to highlight is, well, a few things that I want to highlight is that this is a second public hearing. We're only required to have one. We had one on June 4th.
Right.
And so today would be the opportunity for any more citizens to come in and ask any questions or comments about the budget. The general fund budget increased by about 2.5% this year. And we are not proposing any increases in any of the property tax rates, the electric rates, the water rates, other than a few new rates for new facilities that are further in the agenda, the electric theater and the cremation garden. We're not proposing any rate increases. We did receive the certified tax rate from the county for this year, and our numbers are in line with theirs. Is about 3% growth. So we are not seeking truth in taxation to increase the city's property tax. And then I believe that's all that I had as far as an overview of the budget. Having said that, with our meetings in May, there are a few items that Gary Esplin, the city manager, had recommended in his budget letter, and also some other items that we had discussed during those work meetings. And so I just kind of want to go through each of those items and get your authorization to put those into the final budget. So, and I apologize for being I'm just an accountant, so I go step by step.
You're good.
Anyway, so these are items recommended to fund from the general, or into the general fund from the capital project fund. A fire pumper and related equipment for the fire department for $800,000. The city's portion of the fleet expansion project, and that's $1.7 million. And then funding for the repair of 3 city facility roofs for $305,000. To relocate the horseshoe pits from Snow Park, that's part of the Elksfield project, and that's going to be $150,000. Bucket truck replacement for the Parks Department for our forestry program, $159,000. And then we also have the Recreation Center is currently undergoing a remodel, and they're not going to be able to finish that this year. So they're asking for just a portion, $93,000. Since they're not going to spend it this year, they'd like to roll it over into next year. So the total amount funded by capital projects would be $3,207,000. And the way that we get those capital project funds is we do budget in the general fund. We're conservative on our estimate or on our revenue estimates every year, and we budget our expenditures where they need to be. And so if our revenues happen to come over, like in our previous budget opening to increase sales tax by $500,000, what we do with that is we transfer it to our capital project fund, and then we can use that for one-time projects. So if we make this amendment, you're not going to be affecting any of the ongoing operations. It's one-time monies for one-time projects only. Also recommended by the city manager is to transfer $200,000 from the Economic Development Fund to the golf fund, or for golf to use for equipment. And then there are some adjustments related to the unbilled utility services. For the water fund, $185,000. For the general fund, it would be $71,500, and that's because we've brought a few more parks online. And one of the things I want to mention about that is our parks are not watered by culinary water. In any chance that we have, we water them with secondary irrigation water. So our golf and our parks are that way. Switch Point is, we're asking for $5,000 for unbilled water services. And then items 11, 12, 13, and 14 are all projects that were included in this year's budget that need to be rolled over to next year's budget. So Park Impact Fund, Little Valley Park, their playground is $121,000. We're just going to roll that forward with your permission. Park Impact Fund Webb Hill Trail, the contractor has indicated they cannot get a kiosk here in time, and so for $25,000, we'd like to move that forward. And then the Energy Services Department would like to move forward $270,000 of their 1000 East to Flood Street substation rebuild. It looks like I've got a typo there. And then this is what we talked about earlier, the Middleton Wash Trail flood repairs. We'd like to ask for an additional $100,000 to fund that trail repair. And then one of the additional items is it's my understanding that after hearing the presentations that the departments made to the mayor and city council during the May work meetings, is that you would like to include funding for an additional prosecuting attorney, and that would include salaries and benefits for $103,752. So the net overall increase that we're proposing being added to the final budget is $4,288,252, and no cents. So,
And again, 3.2 million of that is a transfer from the capital projects fund.
right.
And some of those dollars, again, are carryovers
They're-
as you've
Yes.
line itemed those. Any questions, council? You've got the list before you. Any questions on that? Okay. Then at this point, I will open the public hearing for anyone. First of all, what I'd like to do, if we could, as we open this public hearing, is hear first from anyone who has any comments regarding the unbilled water and electric utility services, as Deanna explained earlier. And then after any of those comments have been made, just any comments relative to the 2015-2016 fiscal year budget. And as you step forward, please just come to the microphone and state your name, if you would, for the record.
My name is Merrill Palmer. I live at 1181 Harvard Place in Bloomington Hills. I'm a registered professional engineer, retired, a certified system engineer professional. I spent the last 35 years of my working career in the aerospace and defense industry as a system engineer, a program chief engineer, project manager, and cost center department head. And I became thoroughly convinced that the way to run the railroad is cost-based accounting. I'm against free water for anybody. I think that costs are best identified and tracked and managed if they're accrued where they occur. I'm not a customer of St. George City Power, so I don't have to bear that cost. But I believe that all who benefit from parks and from the pumping of water ought to share in those costs. It's not fair for me to have that advantage and not have to pay for it. On the other hand, I don't think that the best way to manage a scarce resource such as water is conservation goals and good intentions. I think the best way to handle that is for the costs to show up where they belong in the bottom line of where they're being spent. I guess this involves a budget item to pay for these within the departments if they're not covered by the ratepayers of the utilities. But I think that's where they belong, and I think that's probably why the legislator thought that ought to be visible. The best way to prioritize, to make cost-benefit decisions, and to manage our scarce resources is to put the costs where they belong, where they occur. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments on that item?
I'm Bruce Raftery. I got your letter, so that's one of the 35,000 that made it out to somebody, I guess. Mayor and I talked about this a little bit before the meeting started, and I understand his position. The thing, first of all, a good point. I'm glad to see the transparency. It's something as citizens of anywhere, state, city, this country, sometimes we don't see enough of from our government in any way, shape, or form, so the transparency is good. So I appreciate the letter. The thing that bothered me was that you have an entity, which is St. George City, who is also a customer, obviously, of this water and this electricity. And they're not bearing any costs for that. But on the other side of that coin is it goes out to things that the public can use and see. The medians, the landscaping around here, the parks. I worked 8 years at the softball complex, so I know about potable and unpotable water. It was a great idea. It has nutrients in it, so we don't have to fertilize as often. And it did a good job for us. But what bothered me was that if we could decrease these percentages or these amounts, and my question would be, if we did that, and we had that amount of money paid by the city of St. George as a customer for these services, would the difference, could that money be put somewhere else? The money that St. George City would pay, whatever was decided either by amount or by percentage to reduce, and St. George City paid, could that money then be put to use somewhere else to the good of the majority? But as the mayor talked to me about was, well, do you want it out of this pocket or do you want it out of that pocket? Would be willing to pay a little more than $1.54 a month. I understand that's a great rate, but I think the appearance, and appearance to me accounts for a lot. I've worked state civil service, federal civil service, county civil service, so appearance to me is important. The appearance of unbilled services says we're the administrating agency and we've decided we don't have to pay. That might be a big generalization on my part as what it appears to be. But if we dug in our pockets a little bit, meaning the city, and paid a morsel, I think it shows the city has interest as a customer, as we do as customers, not individuals, but customers, by paying our bill, however we choose to do that. There's some interest there, and that would show interest for those citizens in the city, seeing that the city is also a customer and they're paying a fair share, whatever that might be. But it should be less than $1.3 million, which is what the total of these two come to. That's just my take. Other people might say, well, they're going to tax us some more. I understand that, but I think the appearance of our government and of our city to its constituents and those who get the same services, appearance counts for a lot. And that we should look at that as maybe a possibility. I'm not saying it has to be a big reduction. I'm not talking about 78 to 39 or 88 to 44, cutting them in half. Maybe drop them 10%, and that means the city would be paying 20% as a customer, which to me is key. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Dan Cooper, let me thank you for having this meeting, even though it's required, and for the notification. I did get a letter, and for your thoroughness. I appreciate thoroughness. I do have an issue. I believe they should run on a profit-loss basis. I've had a business for a number of years. You have a profit-loss basis. If you're going to have this water go to the city, the golf courses, then you're in direct competition with private business. And that's unfair. So let them pay for the water. Run it down to and everybody pays. Everybody pays for the water, everybody pays for the electricity. And then if it doesn't produce a profit, get rid of it. Personally, I know we've been 50 years getting into this position, but I see no valid government document saying the government's supposed to provide us recreation. I just haven't found it. I have found it in the 7th plank of the Communist Youth and Student Bill of Rights. So we are socialistic, which I didn't soldier 17 years and get myself disabled for socialism. I just didn't. So we can't dismantle this apparatus. Plus the people have been sucking on the government so long they wouldn't know what to do if we did it overnight. But the right direction is to get rid of recreation. If it's not producing a profit, then the private industry won't pick it up. Therefore, there's no sense in us doing it, because we're still paying for it. But if it's profitable, then the private people will pick it up, because they like to make money, so they can get taxed more. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, others? Again, still on the utility side of things.
Betty Hackett, and my concern is furnishing water to the golf courses. I don't think we should be doing it. The golf courses should be paying for it.
Thank you, Betty.
My name is Bob Rousong. I live in Sunbrook, and I did receive the letter, but I found it rather confusing. On the one hand, it says these are unbilled services, but the costs are included in the rates. I think that's rather confusing to people who are not totally conversant with your budgeting aspects here. So the last speaker, or the last two speakers, are saying, if I understood correctly, the city's not paying for this, but it's being paid for out of a different pocket. So I'm assuming that these costs are covered, but it's rather confusing, I think, to the general public. At least it was to me, enough to motivate me to come down here today. And so I think that the letter should have been more clearly stated as to how these unbilled services are being paid for. Is the city paying for them, or they're not paying for them?
Very good. Well, again, I think Deanna tried to explain that, and I think, you know, it is maybe a little difficult, but who is the city? The city is all of us. You know, we own the city.
Are they paid for?
Well, we're all paying for the cost one way or the other.
Yeah, one way or the other.
Yeah.
Well, I think it should have been more clearly stated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mayor, I will say on that part that this is the second year that we've done this. And it's new for all the cities, and we went through several different versions to try to make it as clear as possible. And I think that's a good point, and Deanna and I will work
Keep
together
working on it.
to
Right.
try to make it as clear, because it's difficult to explain. We want to make it as concise as possible.
And I think that's why the legislature wanted this process to happen, is so that we could explain it and be, as Bruce, I think, said, one of our early commenters, transparent. So, but yeah, it's whether it's paid as, basically the rest of us subsidizing the rate up front, or whether we, the city, pay for it out of our budget, if you will, pay for our own electricity, and then reduce services or increase taxes to cover that. It all comes from the same source, the taxpayers. So it's just how we do it. But, it's good to hear the input. Any others on this?
Mayor, City Council, Ed Baca, concerned citizen. Deanna, thanks for the good budget. It's a pretty sound budget. It's looking awful good for us. The 5.6% increase in general funds is pretty good. I just would like to take a few minutes here just to address the one issue on the new budget for this year, 15-16. And since we did mention the building of public restrooms for the Suntrans service, I think it might be of great interest to a lot of people in the community to ask this question. It begs this question. Does this budget, expenditures in this budget, include a format in which the city will be permitted or allowed to satisfy the requirements of the American Disabilities Act? And I, of course, am referring to the Red Hills Golf Course and the restrooms not being handicapped accessible. I realize we do a lot of things for the All Abilities Park and a lot of other areas, but there are a lot of handicap requirements that are not being met at that particular site. And so my question to you, does this budget have any money for that purpose so that we can be in compliance and to satisfy the handicap needs there? And having posed that question, I would just like to say that for some of the comments that were made, I think that having watched and studied the City Council for a number of years, that it's really satisfying to see that all of these parks and recreation activities, all of these things that we question or maybe have some concern about, the bottom line is that it generates tax funds. It feeds our general fund. And that's what allows us to provide all these services that we have. So I think it's admirable that we continue to do that, and it's a good job on your part. And I have one other, just a little side note. Deanna mentioned that a lot of the department heads made some statements in the workshop meetings and the department heads' presentations on the budgets so that the public could hear all aspects of the budget. And I just wanted to pose another little question because at one of the last city council meetings, a workshop meeting, our city attorney was not able to discuss everything openly because he moved to a closed session. So in the interest of transparency, I realized that some of the items in his budget may have included some litigation items. So if there's anything that can be revealed to the public now, it would be important to do so in the interest of transparency. And if you cannot or you cannot, just maybe a short explanation of why we can't discuss certain items under litigation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Maybe I'll state, I wasn't going to do this today, but since he brought up Dixie Red Hills Golf Course, the council and I have talked individually, and we're going to create, we've already started creating a committee that's going to work hand in hand with our director of golf, Colby Cowan, and Matt Liu, and begin working on the design and then fundraising for a new clubhouse at Dixie Red Hills Golf Course. And we will, once we know what that scope is and what the cost needs are, we will come back to the council and look at what we might be able to, do from, again, capital projects. It would require a budget opening because it's not budgeted in this coming fiscal year's budget. But we are going to begin that process immediately. And it's been 50 years since the opening of Dixie Red Hills Golf Course and the clubhouse that was built at the same time. And so Sid Atkin, who was involved in that originally 50 years ago, Daryl Larkin, Wasu Mudaliar, and several others have agreed to be a part of that committee. Looking forward to that. And we'll get together with them soon, have a chair that we'll appoint and involve the public in that process, especially as it comes to helping to fundraise. We don't expect to raise all the money through that process, but we'd like to do some. And so hopefully, Ed, we can solve some of those issues. It's time, and we're excited to get to do that, and maybe build it for the next 50 years. So anyway, that's the maybe response to that first question you raised. Secondly, Sean, regarding the legal questions brought up, would you care to address that?
Well, if I understand, the question was, why did we go into a closed session for part of that meeting? And that was an update for the council on all of our open and ongoing claims. And obviously, that involves litigation, and so for that reason, we went into a closed meeting and discussed those. That was it.
That was the purpose of that. So yeah, and we do have a few of those. It's unfortunate, but it is part of the doing business as a city. So, any other comments on the budget? Public hearing is still open for the general budget questions. Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. As Deanna mentioned, this is our second public hearing on the new fiscal year budget. We are required by law, by state law, to have one. As long as I've been here, and I'm sure longer, we've tried to have two, just to make sure we give as much opportunity as we can for public input. And we do appreciate it, and all these things we may not make immediate changes like with utility things, but we will consider it. We'll certainly consider it as it relates to future notifications, and then we'll also consider other things as well. We want to at least be clear and at least be transparent, so thank you.
Yeah. I'll just make a couple of comments. As I do appreciate the feedback from the public, and we can look at those suggestions. One of the things that I wanted to mention is these costs are metered, or those services are metered, and that's how we have been able to come up with the amounts. And despite that, I should have mentioned too that we do try earnestly to keep our costs low for our citizens. And as far as our power rates, other than Dixie Power, we are the lowest. We do have the lowest power rates within the Washington County area, and I think even if you compare us to Rocky Mountain Power and other companies on the Wasatch Front. And then as far as our water rates, we are the lowest in looking at an average of 30,000 gallons. We are the lowest and stuff. But I do really appreciate the comments that you've made, and we'll take that back to our staff and look at that and see what the impact is you know, how we could look at some of that. And then, anyway, that's what I just wanted to add to that. So I do appreciate it. And it is our second year, so we are evolving as we go through this process.
Thank you, Deanna. Any other comments or questions, council?
And on that note, it would be good to talk about why we do it that way, some of the ramifications if we didn't do it that way. I'm assuming just on the face that there's some savings somewhere in there for overall for the taxpayers, just from the standpoint that not just citizens pay those water and utility rates, but businesses pay those. And so there's some of the savings that may be coming to us through that. So I think it'd be good to talk about that as well.
Deanna, and again, Gary's not here, but you know, this is what the budget looks like. It's a pretty good sized document. As Deanna said, it's been available online. It's been available through the city recorder and also at the county library, I believe, hard copy. So we do thank our staff for preparing it, and it's a long process. Deanna, how long have you been working on it in one way or another?
We start at the end of January, and so it's quite a process. And we do, I'm glad you mentioned that, we do then 30 days after it's adopted submit it to the state of Utah, and they review it as well. And so I won't be posting the budget immediately tomorrow as I've done in past years, and it'll take me a little bit of time to make some corrections and then that are discussed tonight, and then get that posted to the website. Yeah, but it will be on the website, the city's website, within 30 days.
Very good. And thank you to all the staff, department heads in particular, who go through the process. It's a lot of work, but it's the right, obviously, exercise to go through. We have to go through it. We, by law, have to balance our budget. It's kind of an interesting concept, isn't it? And we're appreciative of the years that that we have had, as Jimmy mentioned earlier, very sound fiscal management, which goes to the city manager and all the department heads and the budget director and now administrative services director Deanna and of course past mayors and councils who've tried to help make sure that happens. Good position to be in, and even through difficult times such as the recession here recently, we fared remarkably well, and that's because of the Capital Projects Fund, for example, kind of a savings account, if you will, that has been built up over the years. Most years we're able to put something aside, and it's not tons, but it's enough that it along with cuts, and we did make cuts during those times,
We did.
and cuts through attrition of people, about 38 people, as I recall, and of course other cuts that we're now we're trying to catch back up. And you've seen that in the budget if you've been listening to it and viewing it online or whatever. And again, it's always available. And once this is final, and it will be posted, you'll be able to see it here in maybe the next few weeks. Any other comments? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion on the fiscal year 2015-16 budget. I think I already closed it. Yeah, we'll make sure. We'll double close it. Close the public hearing at this time.
Well, Mayor, let me dovetail real quickly on one of your comments about weathering the storm that came early on in when I've been serving, but I specifically remember Matt Liu coming to us with a complete remodel and, in fact, a reconstruction of the entire Red Hills Golf Course facility for not only taking in the customers, but also expanding it so that it would have multiple uses as well, since not everyone that went to the golf course just went there to golf. Some had other activities and functions, and were it not for the opportunity sort of lost in that economic downturn, there would have already been something constructed there. It's not like our heads have ever been in the sand as to what was needed up there in that facility. And it's good to see that we're now coming full swing with citizen involvement, as well as this committee that you've announced. I appreciate that. And then funds that we may have to come up with to really fulfill that dream that was presented about 7 years ago.
Well said. I'm ready for a motion if you're ready, Council.
Want me to make it?
You got it.
Either way.
Okay, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the budget for the year 2015-16
Second.
Would you,
with the amendments. With the amendments.
Second.
okay, we have a motion by Jimmy and a second by Michelle. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Jimmy, say aye.
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 Motion passes.
Thank you,
That
Mayor.
make you feel
Thanks,
good?
Jimmy.
That made me feel good.
Too confusing anymore.
All right. Thank you, Deanna, again.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to item 3G, which is one of the addendum. It's a public hearing. And it's a public hearing to consider amending Title IX, Chapter 13 of City Code pertaining to the off-premise sign. And this is a continuation from our last city council meeting in which we left the public hearing open. And so, anyway, I'll go ahead and let Sean continue on and explain that one to you.
And this proposed amendment was to the signed ordinance dealing with off-premise signs. And in fact, we do have a representative from Yesco here today. I don't know if there's anyone else from the other sign companies, but we set today as the date to continue the public hearing, just to give us a goal to work on getting input from the sign companies. We've had a couple of meetings with them, and they've been very productive, and we're working towards the resolution of some language to give some flexibility to the council on the placement of future electronic billboards and some standards for those. And I think it's been positive, actually very positive progress, but we're not done yet. And so in discussion with them, we told them that we would like to continue this. They agree to that. And so with that, we would, unless there's any input from any of the representatives that are here, we would propose that we continue the public hearing. Now, we had, in our discussions with them, and not knowing what the council meeting dates would be in July, had proposed the 30th, but not sure if we'll have a meeting that day, so we might set it for that first week of August. And so that's the date that I would propose to the council that we continue the public hearing to, and that date would be August 6th.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Have any of the sign company members that are here, is there anything they'd like to say at this time? No? Okay. Anyone else? Okay, give us a sign. Thank you, Gil. Okay, so then, council, any questions on this? Basically, we would need a motion to, again, continue the public hearing to consider amending Title IX, Chapter 13 of the City Code pertaining to off-premise signs to August 6, 2015.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Michelle, second by Betty. Any discussion on the motion? Does this require a roll call vote, Sean? All in favor, starting with Gil, say aye.
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 See, isn't that fun? Motion carries. This makes for good TV, you out there, right? Not really, okay.
Okay, so that's going to move us to 4A. We're jumping around a little bit, aren't we? 4A ordinances. To consider the approval of an ordinance prohibiting fireworks in designated areas of the city. And Mayor, this is something that we do each year, is identify the areas that fireworks are prohibited. And this would be effective from July 1st to July 27th. And you have the ordinance, and I believe that we'll post a map, is that correct, Chief? On the city website, showing which areas are approved and which are not approved.
And just as a clarification, the law was changed a few years ago by the legislature, and so in those times when we have drought conditions or a high fire danger, we're allowed to do this, but we have to actually adopt this ordinance. So this year with the drought conditions, the chief has recommended that we adopt this ordinance again.
Chief, is it effectively the same as what it's been? Do you want to come forward?
Mayor and Council, yes, this is the same ordinance and order we've done in the past several years. I believe back in 2012, we adopted a new ordinance for the city, 9-9-2, which gives the city authority to prohibit the use of any ignition source. With that, we have to redo the order each year, which gives the locations and the maps, and then also the dates. And so that's what we have tonight is the order. And it'll again go through July 1st, 2015 through July 27th, 2015. So what that does is that takes in both the legal dates, July 4th, 3 days prior, the day of the holiday, and the 3 days after, for both the 4th and the 24th of July. So a few years ago, the legislature changed it where you could light them off the whole month of July. That lasted about 1 year, and then that representative that proposed that and got it approved changed it back. And there was a lot of complaints throughout the state. The map is already on the city website. They put that on today. It's on the front page of or the main page of the city website. It's just one of the boxes under the different activities. It's firework restrictions. It gives the restrictions, a brief statement of what the restrictions are. It's no fireworks of any kind are to be used within 250 feet of the following areas: dry washes and drainages, river and stream corridors, hillsides, plateaus, and mesa tops, and undeveloped open space or natural terrain. And the map is the same that we've used the last few years. It hasn't changed the restricted areas. And again, it's on the city website, and it'll have the red hashed areas are the ones that are prohibited. And this is, the IT department's done a great job. You go in on that section and just type in your address, and it'll bring it right up to your address on the map, zoom in, and it'll actually show you if you're in a restricted area or not. So we've had good success with this the last several years. We found the ones that follow the rules great. The ones that don't are going to light them off no matter where they are. We've already had a couple fires this year from fireworks. Stonecliff had a fire a couple weeks ago, 3 juveniles with fireworks, so they were cited by the police department, and we're working with the attorney's office to figure their fines and things. So it's pretty dry. We've had some suspicious fires last night in Bloomington, over by Bloomington Elementary and along the freeway. We think it was juveniles with fireworks. About 3:30 this morning, we were out there checking those. So, and we had one yesterday morning with an animal on one of the power lines.
I saw that one.
Shorted out. So
Going
it's
over
hot
the
and
going over
dry.
the hill.
Yeah. So it's the ones we're getting are spreading fast, pretty rapidly. It's really dry with the cheatgrass, and then the fuel moisture in all the vegetation is very low. So, any other questions?
Any other questions, council?
How many average fires do we have caused by during the 24th and the 4th?
Generally, the last few years, we've actually declined. Last year, we saw a little bit of an increase. I'm not sure on the total numbers, but the one year, we were down to about 4 fires on July 4th for that. I think that was in 2013. So a lot of people are really, they're taking advantage of the city-sponsored fireworks and staying away from buying their own. Again, if we get the calls, if the ones they buy out of state are illegal or legal, there's a reason they're buying them out of state. But a couple of years ago, the state did approve the aerial, some aspects of the aerial fireworks. They can't be reloaded, so any ones that you can reload the tube with a firework are illegal. But last year, we did have one of the local vendors that was selling illegal fireworks out of his tent there on the boulevard. We actually got complaints, went over and we did another inspection, and he had brought him in after we'd done our inspection the first time. So we shut that distribution point down, and with the help of the State Fire Marshal's office and the City St. George Police Department. So he was cited and shut down, and the distributor was actually contacted, and they were not aware of what he was doing, so he won't be selling this year, or I don't think ever again. So we take it pretty serious, and like I say, we're inspecting the fireworks stands before they open and then during the holiday season.
Very good.
May I make one other? I appreciate so much our St. George Fire Department and the great work that you do. And it's kind of scary on the 4th of July when you see a fire light up while you're out celebrating. But I'm a red, white, and blue apple pie fireworks girl. It's just my heritage in this great country of America. And I think that sometimes we don't realize that we live in a desert, and oftentimes when northern Utah is saying, oh, we're in a drought, and I know that you can test the soil and determine how many years we've been in stress, but we're always in stress down here. We are in a desert. So I appreciate the fact that we have the state law that the legislators have made, and that we have this great map, and we can revisit this every year, but I hope that we look at it that way, and as long as we encourage our citizens to be good citizens and to appropriately use fireworks where we need them to use them, that we can continue to celebrate our 4th of July with bombs bursting in air. I think it's really important.
Yeah, and it's, just to give the citizens our appreciation, because they do. A lot of them call us and ask for tips. We've included on the website a lot of tips and safety points, and they've really been careful the last several years and done a great job. And like I say, a lot of them they're nervous enough that they don't even want to buy fireworks anymore. We talked to all the distributors last year, and their sales have been down the last couple of years. And some of these stands are used by different groups to actually fundraise, and it's been tough for them to make money on them, because people are just really nervous about lighting fireworks off.
Well, and I must say too, if you would please indulge me, last week I had a heat stroke situation because I'd been out in the sun and hadn't eaten or had any water, and I was just amazed at how respectful and kind and efficient and expert our fire people were, and they checked my vitals, and actually I learned I'm probably in pretty good shape, but I should drink, and I thank you for that.
Drink water.
Yeah, let's clarify that.
Drink water. And I'm sorry to delay our meeting, and thank you very much.
Thanks.
Gee.
It's good. The map does work very well online. Every year, my kids check to see if my house is allowed to do it, and every year we're not. We're
I
so.
was going to say, we could make it so it's not allowed, but.
We're too close to the river, and so, I appreciate the safety that it's desired, or that it's designed to.
We've had some
have.
parents call and ask if we could expand it into their neighborhood, so they're
Yeah,
restricted, so.
exactly. Well, in our case, we can almost just go to friends across the street and we're okay. And I've had a few end up in my front yard, that some of those aerials you talked about that are legal. And I'm glad that there aren't any more. It's not more liberal because it started a little fire in my front yard once. So anyway, we do need to be careful. They are fun, and the city will be doing a pretty fantastic fireworks show, as you indicated, Chief. So that those that just want to do that, then you're in charge of keeping us safe and
We try.
and we have once in a while.
Murray's in charge, Murray
Yeah.
Gubler.
Murray
They
Gubler.
do a great
They
job
do.
also. They work very well with us.
They do.
Beforehand, we have different fire units staged around the city during the 4th of July, so we can respond, and man, so we can respond quickly and get on top of them quick.
Appreciate it.
Mayor,
Okay.
Real quick,
Yeah.
question. Chief, this is fireworks restricted areas. What do you see coming if the conditions still merit it for all sorts of fires of any kind in these areas, or what the county might do, or other?
I think the state forestry and the, Forest Service and BLM, I would think they'd be restricting campfires, and the restrictions they put in place last year, smoking, welding, cutting, all those will most likely be in the next few weeks, I would assume.
I would hope so. I visited up on Smith Mesa where a gentleman a mile away was welding a piece of fence, and it cut a swath of destruction all the way clear almost to Hop Valley. So
Yeah, it doesn't take long. We had the one out, North Bloomington Hills off the freeway a couple years ago.
Mhm.
We've had them up in Entrada and things where they're, like I say, grinding on an ornamental fence and things like that. And they really, you're got your goggles on and your safety equipment. You're not seeing what's going on with the sparks coming off there. And a lot of times, the personnel doing it really don't know they started a fire until it's already going pretty good.
yeah,
So,
fence on fire.
and a lot of them that we've talked to have, extinguishers and things with them to try to minimize that. But
Great, thanks.
And I just think it's great that we have taken this and said, let's identify the danger areas and not have the knee-jerk reaction of saying, hey, let's cut them out everywhere. We've tried to provide some leeway.
Yeah.
Yep.
As one who loves fireworks and fire and learned at the early age that you could burn down the entire neighborhood if you're not careful, and had the fire department come. I still love fire. It didn't scare me off. My mother took the knee-jerk reaction and took all matches away. Which I don't understand, but I'll go ahead and make a motion that we, if we're ready, that we approve the ordinance prohibiting the ignition, detonation, or use of fireworks or other ignition sources in designated areas of the city.
Second.
Motion by Jimmy, second by Betty. Any further discussion?
For legal terms, I think the map needs to be commented on as part of the ordinance.
As designated in the map.
Okay, is that
So
okay,
amended.
Betty? All right.
Yes.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Joe, say aye.
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 Okay, thanks, Chief.
Okay, we'll move over to resolutions then, over to 5A. And this is to consider the approval of a resolution adopting a bail schedule. And Mayor and Council, this is basically a housekeeping item where our current bail schedule had defaulted to the state's rates. And so we're just establishing our city-owned rates, and it would apply to any violations of any city ordinances. So the bail schedule is attached, and we're just asking for your approval on that.
How close does this mirror the state's?
Well, and Paula was going to speak on this. There is a difference, actually. These are lower than the state's
That's what I
rates.
was thinking.
Yes, absolutely. And she had the actual breakdown of it, and I know she was watching in another room. Maybe
Yeah.
she could come in.
There's a
and,
little bit of a time delay between the other room, but my understanding in talking to Paula earlier is that these
They are
rates are
definitely lower.
lower than the state's rates, the default rates.
we took that into consideration and thought that maybe the state rates were too high.
So these are for Class B misdemeanors would be $680. Class C is $340, and infractions are $100. And this would become, if it's approved today, effective immediately, I believe.
And I apologize, I would have read those to you, except I'm having computer problems
It's
too, so
okay.
he's still working on it right now in
Yep.
another room. So yes, those are the rates that we are proposing.
We reviewed these, council, with our committee that's been working on these kinds of things, and Jimmy and Gil were involved with that, as well as legal. So, and I think we brought those back to the full council. But that's what anything, Paula, that you'd like to explain on this, mostly as it relates to where our proposed fees are comparative to the state fees. That was our question.
Well, first let me explain that the state does have a schedule for cities as a default if the city council were not to adopt their own fee schedule. And so their fee schedule would be their default one. For a Class B is $150, for a Class C is $80, and for an infraction is $25. By comparison, the state general fees that they have, if they don't have one designated specifically for the fine, their default fees for a Class B misdemeanor is $680 as opposed to the $150 for a city. And then it's $340 for a Class C misdemeanor as compared to the $80 for a city offense, and $100 for an infraction, again comparing to the $25 for a city. And so what we've proposed is to adopt the same default schedule that the state has for state violations at the $680, $340, and $100.
For
Okay.
state violations.
So they're the same.
So they would be the same as the state offenses.
Okay. Any questions, council?
I think it's important to clarify, not that it relates directly to this, that what we're talking about here is not when you make this infraction or whatever it is, you're not automatically handed a fine. There's all sorts of things that go in, we've talked about this at length, that go into play with, hey, how do we fix this and how can we mitigate it? And notice is given to people who are in violation before this ever comes into play. So I just think that's important that I know we
Right.
talked about that quite a bit, so.
And these fees apply to all city violations, so parking, or traffic tickets.
Right.
If it's a city type offense rather than a state violation. For example, our sound ordinance, the officers issue tickets for a sound truck is what they call it. That's a city ordinance, and this fine would apply to that instead of the state amount. So it would make it so that they're actually being charged at this higher rate rather than that lower rate for any of the city violations. But yes, any of our normal procedures would still be in place for everything that we do in the city. So whether it's air quality or any of the other things that we deal with, we would still do our normal procedure with all of those things.
Do we have bail bondsmen? How do people pay these bails?
We don't have, well, if you're talking about for the bail schedule, what that means is that's the amount that generally the court will assess for the fine if there aren't some unusual circumstances. If they've had them there 5 or 6 times, they may say, you know, the usual is no longer is not appropriate. We're going to charge higher than this. Or it could be, you know, there's some extenuating circumstances here that maybe mitigate it. So this one justifies reducing it. And the prosecutor may ask for those things to be reduced, or maybe have no fees assessed. Maybe they recommend community service instead, or a plea in abeyance. So there's still a lot of other options. This is just like the default where they start, the starting point for it. And if it's one that they can just go pay the fine rather than appear in court, this is the amount they would pay if they just went over there and paid it. But some things have a mandatory appearance, so they would have to see the judge and go through that process. But some things, they can go over and actually just pay it without ever appearing in front of a judge.
Okay? Questions?
Well, what Jimmy said about how you work with people is verified in the fact that the booklet you gave us on code enforcement statistics and numbers of violations and what categories, et cetera, it seemed like 97% of them are resolved, and only the outstanding ones that impose other penalties are people that say, I'm just completely ignoring you and I'm not going to do anything about it, and I'll let my neighbors complain all they want.
Right.
Okay.
And it's the same with our business license, our building permits, our air quality permits. We always try to work with those places and bring them into compliance, and going through the court process is a last resort.
Yes.
Okay. If there are any other questions, otherwise I'm ready for a motion.
I move that we approve the bail schedule for St. George City.
Second.
Motion by Betty, second by Michelle. Any further discussion? This is a resolution requiring a roll call vote. We'll start with Michelle. All in favor, say aye.
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 See, it's fun. Motion carries.
Alrighty, that will move us to item 5B, to consider the approval of a resolution adopting a fee schedule for the Electric Theater. And this is pretty exciting because we normally get into the new fee schedules just before the facilities are opening up. So that means the Electric Theater is just about ready to open. And I think we'll go ahead. You have a copy of the fee schedule there in front of you. And do I see Gary or Kent, both of them? If they want to come up and just, we did review this. They did a presentation in the recent work meeting. And if you have any questions, they're available to answer those questions for you.
We did go over these in a work meeting. You know, I think one of the things that as a philosophy we talked about, council, is, you know, we want to be reasonable in the fees. At the same time, we also don't want to be, you know, sort of underpricing, you know, in terms of the community, you know, and the private sector. We're trying to balance things there. And so we've attempted to do that. Correct, Kent and Gary, as we've done these studies. I feel like what they've done, they've listed through this, and this will become available for, you know, again, all the different fees applicable: studio office space, gallery space rental, classrooms. And there are some that are no charge, but that's for typically city programming and community programming. And then theater space, and you can see it lists the different rates, including community, city, resident, nonprofit programming that's non-resident, I guess, and then for-profit programming. So I think that's, we're getting, I think, better at this in terms of, you know, setting these kinds of fees to be, again, fair and consider our costs. We're not trying to make money. We're trying to, you know, as much as we can, break even and these kinds of things, and offer what I think is a really going to be a fantastic venue for our all of our public as it relates to visual and performing arts. So any questions, comments? And Betty, in particular, you're pretty close to these arts folks. Any questions? I've been pretty close to them as well.
I think it looks fair. I think we might have to try it.
Yeah, so things can be adjusted, you know, but we would be assessing fees. We're not going to, you know, that's one of the things. We're trying to set them fairly so we can you know, assess them and do it evenly and consistently. So
there are many groups out there. I could start listing them that are very excited and want to be involved. So this has to be an evolving process to see how to
Yep.
include everyone.
Just one question. There's a $25 technician fee, but it says in there that the technician included in those daily pricing. So that would be for additional technicians then?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
I see the nod from the back there. Good point on the last page there, huh?
Just because people will probably ask, does this still go through special events? Does it go through the park department, leisure services department to pay these fees, to apply, or what?
We will have staff located at the Electric Theater when it opens, and that was part of one of the budget openings that you approved earlier, is to move some office equipment, so they would just go to the Electric Theater and talk to one of our staff persons there and sign up for the rental or the classroom or whatever their services that they desire. So we'll have someone on site.
I think that's very important that it be a one-stop shop. We don't want our citizens to be confused and have people running to this office and that office. This is a very good thing.
Good.
Do we have,
exciting.
do we have the capability of using credit cards there? Thank you.
Ready for a motion if you are, council.
Quick question. And I'll make the motion, but the additional technicians as determined at the end there, last page, but determined by who? Because I'm concerned that we say, you need some more people here, and they say, no, we don't. So who would be the determining person as to technicians needed?
Good question. Kent or Gary?
Kent, Gary, do you want to?
I mean, could be simple as saying additional technicians as determined by scope or intents or.
Right. I mean, there are probably some productions that you require, maybe a dedicated light technician, a dedicated sound technician, perhaps one backstage operating the curtains or something like that.
I mean, it could be as determined by mutual agreement
Right.
between the city and the applicant.
Right, because they might be able to have somebody that can
But
pull the
I think
curtain.
we need to have something in there and not just leave it hanging. But
Okay.
even if it's just by mutual decision, work it out.
I would think it would just be affecting the quality of their production, whatever they're trying to do. If they don't
Yeah,
have enough
right.
technicians, they're just going to be unable to accomplish what they want to do. But
Right.
I don't know.
Techs determine quality and safety.
Correct.
Especially, okay. So do you accept that language in
Yep.
there?
That's fine.
What's the language?
As determined by mutual agreement between the St. George City and the applicant.
As part of the fee schedule?
No, it's on the back here. It says one technician
Well,
included.
It's part of the
Yeah,
fee schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah, we, technically that language wouldn't normally be in the fee schedule, but we certainly could take that approach on working with them on it, but the fee schedule should just lay out all of the fees that are,
Yeah, so
It's
maybe
gotta be
in where
charged.
it says additional technicians as determined, just put in there, additional technicians, $25 per hour.
we could put in a rate right like that, yes. And then we could determine the number of technicians
Or as
that are
needed.
needed.
That would be good.
And I think that's a point Gil made. Who makes that determination? If I were paying for it, I would like to have as few as possible.
Yep.
And if I'm the city, I want to make sure it's all covered. So it's not clear to me who determines how many technicians you use.
And as far as the fee schedule goes, we would not put that in the fee schedule unless you want to say as determined by the city, but you could direct the staff to work with them with the user to
I
make
would
sure
just
that
put it in the
you come up
application.
with something
Just
that
put it in the
works for
application
both.
that there's
Application
some-
or
Yeah, the-
contract that we come
Yep,
up with.
But on a
exactly.
fee schedule, it'd be a per dollar or per use or an actual charge that we could quantify.
Yeah, let's just make sure it's in the contract or application. Mayor, I move that we adopt the recommended fee schedule, which file attachment is Exhibit A, and for the Electric Theater.
Second.
Motion by Gil and second by Joe. Any further discussion? Seeing none, again, this is resolution requiring a roll call vote, so we'll start with Betty. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries.
We'll go ahead and move to item 5C, which is to consider approval of a resolution adopting a fee schedule for the Tonnequin Cemetery Cremation Garden. And this is an exciting project as well. We're just getting ready to open that up. I believe it's July 1st. Did I see Cody? And there is a new fee schedule that has been placed before you, and it was more of a clarification that the fees are for space and not actually, we don't want to give the guys that it was for ownership of different spaces, that they're basically renting the space and not owning the ground or something like that. No, it should be separate from, I thought Christina said that she attached that, or left a separate fee schedule on each of your. Here, Joe.
I've just got it on here. I've got it electronically, so.
I know, but she said it wasn't the same as what was in the packet.
It's my understanding the amounts are the same, it's just the terminology. Instead of just saying granite tables, it says space for granite table.
It does say
or,
space.
Space for individual postmarker, right.
Granite tablet isn't included, it's a space for a granite tablet. Right? Or is it included?
We can have Cody come up and explain that. It's kind of a new concept to a lot of us, maybe not you, Jimmy, but the rest of us. Yeah.
So all the spaces, it's just for the individual space. It's not for tablets or benches or any of the accessories that go along with it. It's just for the space, for the right to be buried in that space.
What does the word tablets mean?
It's just a description of a granite piece that is engraved with the name that memorializes the individual that is buried there.
So is that
Who provides it?
a standard that everyone has to meet, so they're all the same?
Yes.
Same color and,
Correct.
can't take a piece of granite out of your kitchen and bring it over.
Correct.
Behind Deanna and Councilman Bocut, you'll see the master plan for the cremation garden, and we're doing phase 1 right now, correct, Cody?
Yes.
And which is really, it's probably more than half of what you see there. And so, and that's under construction right now.
Yes.
You're close, you're almost finished.
Yeah, we're almost finished. We'll
Yeah.
be planting the vegetation and the irrigation. We'll be doing the irrigation to all the vegetation next week.
Right. Excellent, another option, and we hope to, again, we were talking a little earlier, hope to maybe publicize this, and when it's ready, all ready, maybe let people come out and take a look and
Yeah, we'd love to have an open house
do
and
an
inform the
open house,
public.
grand opening.
Yep, that'd be great. Thank you.
Is the number of people requesting cremation rising in our community?
And dramatically, with the diversification that our community is experiencing, we've seen that people come and ask for these options, and there's not very many options around our community with these facilities, so that's what inspired us to go forth with this.
It's estimated that by 2050, it'll be 70% in the United States.
Wow.
If the tablets are delivered by Moses, how much more expensive is that?
I can't comment on that.
See, this is good TV. I'm just saying.
Ought to be expensive.
I'm ready for a motion.
I'll give you the one later, Gil. No ossuary then? We decided no on that?
Sorry, I prematurely left. In the master plan, the ossuary was the focal point of the whole design. We relocated the ossuary on the outside because those were less expensive, not to deter, having a price-driven quantity, but we decided to put the columbariums as a focal point because they're a little more expensive, as you see on the chart.
Yeah.
And so the ossuary is moved into phase 2. So we decided to move
Would you
that to
define
Thursday.
ossuary?
Explain to us non-funeral cemetery people what some of this stuff even means.
Okay, so an ossuary is a containment, excuse me if I get a little
Use your
graphic, I
hands all
guess.
you want.
But an ossuary is a containment, a vault, so to say, as where cremation remains are deposited, and they are not separated, they're together. And then there's a tablet that is engraven with names on that. And so that's where what is called a cenotaph. And so you have an ossuary and a cenotaph that memorializes the people in that area.
So lots of people could
Better described as a
Yes,
cremation
together,
well.
kind
A
of.
well.
together.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, kind of a party situation. So,
New Orleans, they put the bones
the
together,
party?
so this is better. This
Yeah.
is good.
Group hug.
so some of the other ones, like postmark or individual marker, it is described as what it really is, a marker with an individual or a companion, and they're just different sizes and memorialization. So,
I was asking Jimmy what the cremation bench was, but what's the tree estate? So what is all this?
so a tree estate is a location by a tree as a little estate plot of land where you could put
Somewhere
a
Gil
whole
would
group
wanna
of
go.
family or.
Will those be separated off, like walled off or fenced off, or just there'll be a section?
Just a little section with maybe a little curbing or section there. So benches, they make the benches now that are core drilled, and you just put the urn right down in the bench and then glue it down. So it's a new way of thinking.
It is.
So,
Okay.
any other questions?
Got it.
Come to the open house, please.
What?
I said, come to the open house, please.
We will.
Thank
There
you.
you go. Okay, ready for a motion if you are, council?
Move that we approve the fee schedule, I guess it would be a schedule, for our
Yep.
cremation garden at the Tonnequit Cemetery.
Second.
Motion by Betty and a second by Michelle. Any further discussion? This is another resolution requiring a roll call vote. So we'll start with Jimmy again. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, motion carries.
One last question, Cody. When can people start buying these?
Okay,
Great. Okay, so we've got one more resolution that was on the addendum, and it's Resolution 5F, to consider approval of a resolution adopting the first amended interlocal cooperation agreement between Washington County, other municipalities, and the City of St. George regarding the distribution of a RAP tax revenue. And as you'll recall, we've already approved an interlocal with Washington County and the other municipalities as far as the RAP tax that was approved by voters in November 2014. And that interlocal explained how the RAP tax would be distributed. This is just a clarification. This amendment is a clarification that the cities do not have to follow the advisory committee that's set up by that initial interlocal agreement. And that advisory committee was just 15% of the RAP taxes would be a county created advisory committee that those monies could be used across the county. The cities get 85% of the RAP tax. And so this is just a clarification saying that that 85% that we receive will go to projects determined by the mayor and city council and not by that advisory committee. And then the second significant factor in this amendment is just that it clarifies that we do have the ability to use those RAP taxes towards not only building new facilities, but also towards the operation and maintenance of any recreational arts and parks facilities. And so that's the reason for this amendment.
I don't know how to repeat all of that, but
okay.
I'd like to move that we accept that
So I have a question.
definition.
Okay, we have a motion by Betty and a second by Gil, and now a question. Joe?
I got a little lost, I'm sorry, on the advisory board.
The county created an advisory board for their purposes. We're not required to do that.
By state law, the county is required to, and it's only for those arts portions of the proceeds that they would use. By state law, they're required to do it, but we're not required to do that. And that was the intent with the, when we drafted the interlocal and adopted that. So all this is doing is clarifying that the county's board is for those county art-related purposes, for their proceeds under the RAP taxes, and that the cities can create their own and use their own boards for determining theirs.
So that's a board that isn't financed. Does any of the money out of the RAP tax come to,
It's a county board.
the county board?
The 15% off the top goes
Goes
to the county.
to, and it wouldn't really be the board, it's the county. This is an advisory board that the county has to set up to advise them on how to distribute those proceeds for the arts. And so we're just clarifying that as cities, we're not required to do that. That was never the intent. And so we don't have to run ours through their board.
And what will happen is their county commission will make those decisions. And similarly, this council will make the decision for all RAP tax revenue that comes to the city.
That's right. It's their board is a recommending body.
And we may use a recommending body for example, the arts could come through our Arts Commission, and I think that is our intent. But this simply is clarifying, as Sean said, what we do and don't have to do as far as it relates to the county and advisory board.
So, Sean, one other clarification. Since the municipalities and the county are the parties, correct?
Right.
The last integration clause states that the parties basically all agree that we're allowed to go on our own. Is that correct?
The parties all agree, yes, that's what it's saying, is that we
Okay.
all understand what the intent was, and we're just clarifying, and all the parties agree.
And they can't individually break out and refute any of the clause because it's all integrated.
That's right, but if
Okay.
they want to run theirs through the county's board for the recommendations on the arts, they certainly could do
Okay.
that if they choose to do
Just
so.
want to make sure that was on the record as the core element that's in here. Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Again, this is item 5F on our agenda, ready for a motion.
They made it, and I seconded
Oh,
it.
you did? Oh, sorry, yeah. Okay. That's right. All in favor? We'll start, again, this is a resolution, so all in favor, starting with Betty, say aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. Very good.
Okay, as indicated earlier at the beginning of the meeting, item number 6A has been tabled. So we'll move on to item 6B, the report from Planning Commission, meeting held on June 9th, 2015, and Wes will present that.
I was
I'll
going to give him
talk
15.
I can talk fast. Item 1A and 1B from the Planning Commission report is, 1A is to consider a zone change amendment request to construct a two-story 90-unit townhome infill project consisting of 16 buildings with amenities on approximately 7.89 acres of property in the PDR. Project is Desert Hills Townhomes, is located approximately at the northeast corner of Brigham Road and Desert Hills Drive. The owner is Sitla, and the applicant is Mr. Ryan Thomas. 1B is to consider a zone change request on approximately 13.36 acres from RE20 to R112 to accommodate future residential development of the Cove at Little Valley. Property is generally located on the south side of Horseman Park Drive and generally between Little Valley Road and 2350 East. The owner is Sullivan Field LLC, and the representative, Mr. Sean Sullivan. So those are public hearings to be advertised for July 9th.
I will make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Michelle and a second by Betty to set the public hearing for these two items. Any discussion? This is for July 9th, 2015, which will be a regular meeting of the City Council, by the way. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, item 2A from the Planning Commission report is a request to approve a preliminary plat for a 91-lot residential subdivision called Desert Crest. It's located on the south side of Desert Canyons Parkway. Property is 23.33 acres. The density is 3.9 dwelling units per acre. The zone is PDR, with the underlying being PD8 and PD12. General plan shows this is residential. The applicant is Quality Development Representative is Mr. Ken Miller. This preliminary plat is right here behind Councilman Almquist. You already approved this preliminary plat called Deserts Ridge. As you recall, this had to be tabled because a portion of this actually was in a commercial zone, so they had to come back and amend that and pull that out. So this is that portion of Desert Crest that's the preliminary plat. This is Desert Canyons Parkway. They will be required to do a 10-foot landscape strip along here for the double fronting lots, and there's also a trail that will be along this area right here.
Questions, council? This is again a preliminary plat, Desert Crest. If not, ready for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary plat for the 91 lot residential subdivision known as Desert Crest.
Second.
Was that you, Betty? That was Michelle. Motion by Jimmy, second by Michelle to approve this preliminary plat. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, item 2B is a request to approve a preliminary plat for a 76-lot residential subdivision called Redwood Estates. The location is 3200 East and Crimson Ridge Drive. Property is 20.39 acres. The density is 3.7 dwelling units per acre. Zone is R18. General plan is low-density residential. Applicant is Development Solutions. Representative Mr. Ryan Thomas. This preliminary plat here behind Councilman Almquist. This is Crimson Ridge Drive right here. They are requesting lot size averaging on this one, so 12 of the lots will fall below the 8,000 square feet. However, they don't exceed the density of 3.8 dwelling units listed in the ordinance for an R18 subdivision requesting lot size averaging.
Jimmy, you need a drink?
This was coming.
Yeah. It is, part of the general plan, but it is a little higher density, R18. Any questions on this? Otherwise, ready for a motion.
Motion to approve the preliminary plat for the 76-lot residential subdivision known as Redwood Estates.
Second.
Motion by Michelle and a second by Joe. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. On the item 2B I think this is the one we're on.
Yes.
It says the preliminary plat is for the arbors.
Yeah, the whole area is called the Arbors,
Okay.
and then this is just
specific
Redwood Estates.
section of
Redwood.
that.
Yeah.
Thank you. I probably missed that.
Good clarification, though. Any other questions?
What's the density again?
It's a 3.7.
And we get down to almost an R110 density because they've done the averaging.
Well, actually, so an R18 in the ordinance allows up to a maximum of 3.8, so they are below that.
Yeah.
There's 12 of the lots that fall below the 8,000, and then the rest are larger than that.
Out of the 72.
And we allow that just as long as they stay within the density
As long as
requirements.
they stay below that density, yeah, you can allow that.
Any other questions? See, we had a motion already, didn't we, in a
Yep.
second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, item 3A is a request to approve a roadway dedication final plat for Canyon View Drive in St. George. Representative is Brandon Anderson, Rosenberg Associates. This is located approximately 1,000 South Dixie Drive. Zone is R3. All aspects of this final plat were reviewed by staff and legal department to meet the conditions of the preliminary plat. This one is right here. And so this is, as you come down Canyon View Drive from up in the Green Valley area, this is that turn right there as you head down towards Dixie Drive right here. So they'll be realigning it here and dedicating that portion here, which will tie to this portion here that leads down to Dixie Drive. So this portion's already been dedicated. It's just this portion right here that's the realignment of Canyon View Drive.
And Mayor and Council, this piece here Actually, we have been working with the owners of this property for about a year now to get this done. They are not developing the property right now, so they've been good to work with us in order to get that connection done to accommodate the traffic needs in that area. So we do appreciate them working with us to dedicate this now.
Very good.
Wes, I got a question on this, and I probably should have brought it up in Planning Commission, but will Canyon View Drive be restriped there? What I'm concerned about is when you're coming up the hill to make a left-hand turn. I don't know anybody that would do that, but it's right on that curve. If they wanted to turn left into the new portion, is there enough room to put a turning lane in there or anything?
It will be reconfigured and teed off, and Cameron's been working on that.
Right, I understand that.
So there should be enough room there to make that turn maneuver if someone wants to make that left turn.
Yeah, but it'd be actually adjusting Canyon View Drive, not the new road.
Right. The existing Canyon View Drive at the T to make the left, or Canyon View Drive coming down and turning down towards Dixie Drive?
Canyon View Drive and turn left and come down that one, which will only be a couple of blocks.
Right. It'll be the standard width of the roadway, the residential roadway, so it should accommodate that maneuver along with someone making a right turn as well. The tricky part is
right on that curve and.
right, and in the future with that, when that property is developed, Canyon View will be widened, and it'll be widened a little further up as well to make that.
Good plan.
Try to make that, but unfortunately, right now we don't have as much property as we need, and we're going with what we have to make the connection.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'd like to move that we approve the roadway dedication final plat for Canyon View Drive, St. George, which is located approximately 1,000 South Dixie Drive.
Second.
Motion by Betty and a second by Joe. Any further discussion?
Is it still subject to legal review as shown on here?
We do not. We've got it all tied up now, so it's doesn't need our review. We're done.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, item 3B is approval of a 16-lot residential subdivision final plat called Desert Rim Phase 1, Representatives Development Solutions. Property is located at approximately 3630 East Desert Canyons Parkway. Zone is PDR. All aspects of this final plat were reviewed by staff, and it meets the conditions of the preliminary plat. This one is right here. Here is Desert Canyons Parkway. It is a 90-foot road. These two will be double fronting lots. And so there'll be a 10-foot landscape strip along here. They have worked out an agreement with staff where they will pay the maintenance cost of that landscape strip for a 10-year period, and then the city will own and maintain that landscape strip right across there. And I think you have that later on in the meeting. And then they also be required to dedicate 15% open space, and I believe that's also another item in the meeting.
Questions on this proposed final plat?
Motion to approve the 16-lot residential subdivision for Development Solutions at 3630 East Desert Canyons Parkway.
Second.
Motion by Gill, second by Michelle. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, item 3C was an approval of a one-lot residential condominium subdivision final plat called La Estancia Phase 1. It is right here. They have pulled that as they're working out some property issues on that, and it'll come back at a later date. So item 3D is
One question. I probably can't see that for it.
It's right here.
Yeah, I know, but let's go back one. Is
This
that
one?
really 3B or 1B?
Well, from the Planning Commission report, it's 1B. Planning Commission, it was 1B. On this, it's 3B.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, item 3D from the Planning Commission report is an approval of an amended 8-lot residential subdivision final plat called Stone Cliff Subdivision Phase 13. Representative is Pope Engineering. This is located at approximately 2630 East and 1710 South. It's in the Stone Cliff development. Zone is PDR. All aspects of this final plat were reviewed by staff, and it meets the conditions of the preliminary plat and approval. And this one is right here. And the reason this came back as amended is they added this lot right here, And then these lots originally had access on this street. However, there's a fair amount of rock here that they don't want to cut to access this road. So they are proposing to put a private drive right through here with a little cul-de-sac that will service these lots. And then these lots will sit up substantially higher than that road because of the rock. There is a line right through here, which is the ridgeline setback that was required. A little portion of that drive will fall within that area. The ordinance says that no structures or accessory structures can be built within that setback area. We've always we don't consider the road a structure. It also says and also that significant vegetation is not removed. There's not a lot of vegetation up there, so staff looked at it and felt like that was acceptable to put a portion of that road within that setback.
Any questions on this item 3D on the Planning Commission report? Final plat proposed for Stone Cliff Phase 13.
I would move that we accept the final plat for Stone Cliff Phase 13.
Second.
Okay, motion by Joe, second by Betty. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, and all of a sudden I'm lost here. 3D, 4. Item 5 is a request to approve a lot line adjustment for central storage. The representative is Brown Consulting Engineers. Property is located at 955 North, 1300 West, zone is C3. This lot line adjustment will put all the storage units together into one lot. All aspects of this were reviewed by staff and it meets the conditions and approvals. This one is right here. So currently, the lot line is right here by Councilwoman Ariel. Currently, the property line is right there. They would like to move it to right here so that these units here are on one property and these larger units here are on a separate property. It's kind of a family thing that they're trying to do there.
Makes sense. Any questions, council? If not, ready for a motion.
Move that we approve a lot line adjustment for central storage located at 955 North, 1300 West Street.
Second.
Motion by Betty and a second by Michelle. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, item 6 from the Planning Commission report is approval to vacate city property. Applicants are Jimmy and Mary Jenkins. Representative is Bush and Gudgel. Property is located approximately 2100 East Colorado Drive. Zone is PDR. So right here, if you'll look on this, this is the final plat for Red Cliffs Park Estate, or East Phase 1. And this is Colorado Drive. So this is up in the Middleton area. It leads down to these units here. And then this is Red Cliffs Park up here. It's right there by Escalera. When they built this road and dedicated it, it left a little remainder parcel right here. And they dedicated it to the city with that final plat because it was a remainder parcel. This individual here, and it's right here on right here behind Councilwoman Randall, and I can't really see it because it's in color and my eyes are bad, but it's right in here. This lot right here owns all this property right here. They would like to take this piece that the city has been dedicated to the city or deeded to the city, and they'd like to take that and then merge it into their lot right here. We talked to S&S Homes who dedicated the city. They did not see any issues with that. I did talk to the city manager. He felt like there should be some compensation to the city in some type of monetary form. And so it would be subject to that, us working that out with them.
So when it was previously dedicated to the city, did we pay for it?
We did not, and I discussed that with the city manager, and he gave me a great explanation because I presented that to him and pointed that out, and he gave me a great example of why the city would require them to pay for it. and I cannot remember it. I'm really sorry. I tried to remember it, and I thought I wrote it down. But anyways, so I talked to the applicant and just said we would get with him and just make it subject to that, and then get with them and discuss that.
Sean?
If it was going back to the property owners who had dedicated to us because it was that remnant piece, then we probably would just say we could transfer it back to the person who dedicated it to us in the first place. But here we've got a third party involved, and so we can't just turn over that property to someone else without getting some compensation for it. We can sit down with them and discuss the normal price that we charge per square foot, and we would also want to include something that acknowledges that the Sullivans, I guess it was, who actually dedicated in the first place, were okay with that. We wouldn't want to leave a remnant piece there.
How is it different from others that we've seen, such as Stephen Wade Auto?
On the roadway, for example?
The one between the two parcels.
That's different because that is actually a dedicated roadway. What the law says is that if a roadway was dedicated to us and it was given by the adjacent property owners, then we give it back to the adjacent property owners. In this case, it isn't part of that dedicated roadway. It's just a remnant piece that was left over in that subdivision.
It's a remnant piece that was...
That we said we don't want a no man's land there of who for years of not knowing who owns it. So dedicate it to the city if that's what you want to do, because they didn't want to change their plat, and I could understand why they would do that. It's kind of the same deal we had with the vacation of the roadway, the old prescriptive roadway going around Stephen Wade's.
Yeah.
Because truly, if we went back to the original property owner, it would be the person who actually originally did the survey and owned that property at the time, years and years ago, and who knows where those successors and interest are at the time today. So it would be kind of the same thing, same
Okay.
situation.
So somehow it's different because it was dedicated to us, but not as a roadway?
Not as a roadway. The law says if it's dedicated to us as a roadway, it would go back to those adjacent property owners.
All right.
I mean, I talked to the city manager. I think he was just trying to hold to the precedents that the city has established over time.
We've never looked at properties before, for example, we have on the golf courses or adjacent to our parks or anything. If we've paid for that property or haven't paid for that property, it's city ownership. Now someone's requesting to purchase that, and so we go through that process of selling it to them for that
Okay.
dollar or $1.50
Difference
square
seems
foot.
to me to be mostly a roadway.
That's right.
Okay, that helps. Any questions, council? Okay,
Move to approve the vacation of city property located at approximately 2100 East Colorado Drive, pending a decision on a monetary value.
are we doing the lot line adjustment first, or can we do both of those together?
I think you should do those separately.
So should we do the lot line first?
Let's do the vacation first and then the lot line adjustment, and I think we would say subject to, let's just make it subject to legal approval, and we'll work with the city manager and the property owners on the purchase agreement.
Lot line was the previous one. This is just vacation.
I'm sorry I stepped out because I thought this was covered pretty good in Planning Commission, but apparently it wasn't. So at this point, even though they donated that to the city, we're going to charge them money to get it back.
Now, my understanding tonight, because I was not in the meetings with the city manager or at the planning commission, is that the people, the persons requesting to purchase the property are not the same who dedicated it. Is that true?
That is true. They don't, right.
So it's a third party that wants to acquire the property now, not the persons
We
who
own the
dedicated it.
property. It was dedicated to us, but not as a roadway, so that is a different situation.
It's not Sullivans who are developing this, are
Right.
they?
No, I mean, to be honest with you, eventually they might, but it's these people who want it. And then so what happens is, do you want me to go to item 7 because they tie together?
Yeah, it's 6 and 7. that
So
are
what
together.
happens is these people then want to, so this is one parcel right now, and here's the one that they want to take that, vacate it, merge it in, then they want to come right here and lot split their property so that they can do 3 units along that road there for 3 additional houses. And so and so it kind of has to, so they kind of need to vacate that, merge that, and then lot split it. And the agreement was that they would do that within 30 days, or this would, it would not have, it would be subject to a 30-day period to do this.
So I adjust my motion to vacate city property at 2100 East Colorado Drive.
Second.
Motion by Gill, second by Betty. Any discussion on the motion?
Does that include the
Subject to legal
subject to a legal approval so that we can get an agreement, purchase
Price.
agreement between the?
Yep.
Okay, that's what
So amended? So okayed? Second? Betty? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion approved.
Okay, and so item 7 is the approval of the lot split for this property located at 1032 North, 2075 East Circle. Zone is RE12-5, and basically it's to lot split that top portion so that this property now has access onto Colorado Drive and can develop some units in the future.
And if you wanted to approve that, it would be subject to the approval or purchase agreement, yes.
Okay.
Of a purchase agreement with the property owners and the completion of that transfer of the property.
And in Planning Commission, we just made it subject to the condition that this be dealt with within 30 days, this whole process.
And to clarify then, that new lot would then need to be a subdivision when it is
So they
split
would-
into 3 lots?
It's zoned RE. It's a little weird because that piece right here is actually zoned PDR because it was part of the original PD development, even though the
Okay.
city owns it. The rest of this piece is RE12-5. They'll have to come back and fix the zoning and either go to an RE12-5 or they'll, and put that portion in that zone, or amend it and make it part of the PD residential development.
Thank you.
Without that, they couldn't access from that road, Colorado Drive,
They
right?
don't. That's why they need the property, is because the piece sits between them and Colorado Drive.
Total makes sense, they'll benefit from it. So I'll go ahead and make the motion that we approve the lot split, subject to the agreement being worked out with legal on the
Purchase agreement.
purchase agreement.
And that
And
it's
the
done
30,
within.
Done within 30 days.
Right.
Motion by Jimmy, second by Gill. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks for the explanations.
Okay.
Wes? Is that it for Planning Commission? Okay.
Okay, we'll probably bring Wes back for item 6C, is to consider approval of a request to delay public roadway and utility improvements for the construction of a dwelling unit. Jeff Barlow is the applicant. So Wes explained this to me, and I think it's best that he tried to explain it to you as well.
Okay, so this is, let me see if I can show this to you. As Deanna said, the applicant is Jeff Barlow. This is Little Valley Road. I can't see the mouse. Where is he? Right here. And this is 3670 East right there. And these are the two properties, and I'll just bring up the other one too, just to kind of give you. Basically, the applicant wants to construct another house right here. In the 90s, he built this house right here and split his property at that time and split it with this lot here. Back in like 2003, 2005, somewhere in there, he came and built this house right here on this whole piece right here. When he did that, before he did it, he actually came to the council and requested approval to build that house and delay the road improvements along 3670 down to those dwelling units. That was his request, and also that he put in septic. The council approved it. The meeting minutes indicate that they approved it subject to that at some point the city can come back and ask him to put in those improvements at any time. He now wants to build a house here, and when he did that, he dedicated 3670 down through to this house right here. So his half of the road is dedicated from Bentley Drive down to that west side of that lot.
Wes,
Wes?
can you use the pointer
The
to?
pointer's
we're
not working or
yeah,
something.
it's not following.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I thought-
We're a little
Okay,
confused.
let's
There you
start
go.
over.
Okay, so.
I kept trying to find that point.
I'm sorry. This house was built in the 90s, and basically he owned this property, and he created a lot right here in the 90s and built that house. He came back in about 2003 or 5, somewhere in that neighborhood, actually, and proposed to build another house here. He had to actually come to city council and request approval to not put in these utilities or finish the road down to that lot here. And the agreement was, yeah, that's okay. You dedicate the road, and at some future point, the city will come back now and say, yes, you have to put in those improvements. Since then, he has actually come in and he's lot split this, so this is now a second lot, and then he sold this piece. Really, it's kind of a subdivision now. You can subdivide once, but now after that becomes a subdivision and such. So now he wants to build a house here and delay the improvements, again, stating that the cost to build the road from here down to here and to bring sewer from here up to here and water. And there's also, and I have a Google, there's also a canal right along here that the travelers use to irrigate their fields, I believe. And he would have to fill that in and pipe that because the ditch would fall underneath that portion of the road that he would be required to improve. So he is requesting to be able to build that lot and delay what he's trying to. So what we've worked out with him is he would dedicate this portion in front of this house and this house now before he got the building permit, so the road would be dedicated. And he would extend the water down to his house and put a fire hydrant here because he falls outside the limits of the range of a fire hydrant based on the city ordinance or standards. So he would extend the water down to here and put a fire hydrant. He was requesting to delay the road improvements through here and the connection to the sewer. However, when he builds his house, he'll be on septic, but he will pipe it and put a dry sewer line in such that the time comes and the sewer's extended, he can tie to it. In the agreement, it basically states that the city would allow that, but based on that the conditions would be if the city at any time deemed it necessary to have that road, he would have to then pay for the road in front of these 3 lots here, or if this property develops here, at that time, then he would have to help finish the road in front of his 3 lots.
So the property owners to the, I'm going to say north.
Right here, or right here?
All 3 of those parcels.
So this is, yeah, go ahead.
Who are they owned by?
This is the Traveler piece, Jana Traveler
Okay.
owns that piece. And this is, he lot split this about 6 months ago and sold this to a doctor who owns it. So this is owned separately than this.
So the part to the right,
Right here?
yeah.
Uh-huh.
If they came in for a building permit, would that be the time that the road has to be done? Or are we going to wait till the other side of the road is developed?
I didn't write it like that, and we could change, I just wrote it so that when this property developed, he would have to finish it in front of those 3 lots
Okay.
right there. He'd be obligated to do that.
Thank you.
Now, the one thing is with the dedication of the road, this property this lot falls below an acre. The zoning is A1, but our thought was regardless, whenever the road's dedicated, he's going to fall below an acre, and so we just didn't see that as too big of an issue. So he just would like to delay the sewer and the road improvements to a future date.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the agreement for the delay of public improvements.
I'll second that.
Motion by Jimmy, second by Joe. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Wes.
Okay, item 6D is to consider the approval of a franchise agreement with Tonaquint Networks for the provision of fiber services in the city. Sorry, I just got hung up on the fiber part. Anyway, I'll let Sean go ahead and talk about that.
And Mayor, I believe the applicant has been patiently waiting in the back for this. And So I
Very
don't know if
patiently
they want to
waiting.
come up and speak, but this is because it's kind of exciting on what they're going to do here. But this is simply a franchise agreement that allows them to put fiber in our rights of way. It's the standard agreement that we've had with others. It provides for a 5% franchise utility tax for them on their revenues in order to be in our rights of way. But I would like to take the opportunity as they're coming forward to say we get a lot of calls on this regarding franchise agreements when some of the services that are provided by different providers here in St. George that list us as the franchising party. A franchise simply means that we're granting them the right to be in our rights of way so they can install their lines. It does not mean that we control their content. We don't control their business. We don't go through and vet any of these parties that come forward, except that it does provide the right that we can go through and check their financials, and they'll verify it, right to audit, to make sure that we're getting the fees that are provided for under the agreement. And with that, I'll turn it over and let those that know better than I do about the exciting things that they're doing in St. George.
My name's Matt Hamlin. I'm the CEO of the Tonawanda Networks, and we're extremely excited to be able to facilitate the technology in Southern Utah, especially in St. George. It's a huge deal for us. We are very, very excited, extremely excited to actually provide fiber to the home a solution, and it's a company that's based out of St. George. We started from St. George. We're a Southern Utah company, so it's a big deal to be able to provide this type of service in Southern Utah. It's pretty amazing. So we're excited to be working with you guys as well. So
this is to cover the city now?
we're going to be doing it in select areas. We're trying to try.
How about Third South and Third West? Would you go there first?
We can look at it. We're good there. So. But we're moving out. We're deploying in different areas as we get the different take rates. So it's pretty cool.
Awesome, Senator.
What's exciting about this is that this is, you recall the days of Utopia where cities were concerned.
Is that a capital U or a small U?
Well, I'll only say that once.
Okay.
Because we certainly did not get involved in that.
Yeah.
But we were concerned because we didn't have the redundancy down here. We did the agreement with Interlinks, got the redundancy down here, and now we're seeing the fruits of that as different companies have come in and said we want to start providing fiber and in St. George to the home.
So when we issue the franchise or whatever that may be, that doesn't restrict competition from doing the same thing?
It's not exclusive in any way. Obviously on some of the areas of town where they have to attach to our poles, and we probably will need to get a separate pole attachment agreement, that's what we do. But sometimes we're limited on those, and so in those agreements we tell them, for example with Baja, that they would have to replace the pole in order to increase the capacity on it. But that's really the only thing that would be limiting. It's just how to get everybody in that wants to be in all of our rights of way.
Awesome. Mayor, I'd love to make the motion that we approve the franchise agreement for Tonawanda Networks for the provision of fiber services in our city.
Second, with a note to make sure the minutes reflect that the city attorney actually said there is someone that knows better than he does on something. Any attorney that does that should be noted.
All right. Motion by Betty and a second by Jimmy. A lively and instructive second by Jimmy. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations. Thank you. It'll be great to have a local company doing this, and we'll be excited to watch as things go forward.
And get out there and start tonight.
Thanks very much.
Okay, item number 6E is to consider an approval to sign the instrument of release with the FAA for the old airport property, and this is
Good
kind
news.
of a big deal to us. Yeah, so it's kind of a housekeeping item, but it's good news in that now we are able to sell off portions of the old airport property, and obviously in the forefront is the DXATC property, and we're able to sell those off and then to use the proceeds of those to help us reimburse ourselves for costs that the city has funded the replacement airport. And so this is just asking for the approval to have the mayor sign that release, and it's basically a formality at this point, but it's an accumulation of a lot of hard work on a lot of people's parts, so we're excited.
Isn't that exciting? It means we'll be able to sell the 30 acres we've promised to Dixie ATC, and others. We've had a couple others come forward, and we can now do
Are
that.
any of them an outdoor theater?
Are we what? Well, I don't know.
I think it's a great idea,
Yeah.
right up there on top.
Yeah. I had someone approach me today about locating a zoo up there. So, we've got all kinds of things, It will be a business and technology park, but I also envision some park up there of some sort, and we'll talk about that more going forward as we do some master site planning. So I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Is that you signing it? Approve it for your signature, or was that what we're approving?
I believe so. This is on the airport, releasing. Yep.
Okay. I'll go ahead and make that motion to approve authorization for the mayor to sign the instrument to release the FAA, from the FFA, the old airport property.
Second.
He said FAA.
Yeah.
Well, he kind of.
I wanted to say FFA.
I believe that was a motion by Jimmy and a second by, was that you, Joe? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, item 6F is to consider approval of a donation agreement with Desert Canyons for open space being dedicated to the city. And Sean, do you want to go ahead and take this one? I don't see Victoria. She's...
Yes, this one is simply the dedication of open space that's required under our agreement with the developer of Desert Canyons to dedicate a percentage with each plat. So they've identified with the city which properties are going to dedicate, and this is just an acknowledgement of their donation so they can take advantage of that for tax purposes.
We do this once in a while when this comes up. Council, any questions? If not, I'm ready for a motion.
Move, Mayor, that we approve the donation agreement with Desert Canyons for the open space properties as so indicated, 6.89 acres, says, and also will create a bank of open space for future plats of 3.11 acres.
Second.
Motion by Gill, second by Michelle. Was that you, Michelle? Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, item 6, G, is to consider approval of a landscape maintenance agreement with Desert Canyons. And this is where the developer is agreeing to install the proposed landscape strip privacy wall related to the lots in the Desert Rim plat, and then will pay for 10 years of maintenance on the landscape. And they will be required to restore any disturbed areas in the open space donation that is also on this council agenda.
Okay. Questions, council?
So it's already met your legal review, Sean?
Yes, this is the one we spoke about earlier.
Yep.
Okay. I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the landscape maintenance agreement with Desert Canyons Development.
Second.
Motion by Jimmy, second by Michelle. Any discussion?
Who came up with the numbers, Sean, for the improvement or for the maintenance?
For the maintenance, it's the same numbers we used when their agreement with the developer in Little Valley.
Okay.
Okay, any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, we've already completed 6J, so I believe that brings us to the end of all the staff reports. We've got appointments to the boards and commissions of the city.
I don't believe we have any, except I just wanted to mention, this doesn't need to be done officially, but Sergeant Curtis Sprague we'd like to have him added to the committee, the Active Transportation Committee. It doesn't take a motion. I just wanted to, for your information. He heads the police bike patrol, and so we thought that'd be a good connection to have. They met today, by the way, had a great meeting, and some good things moving along, including some budgeted funds that are in the new budget that will help a few things there. So no other appointments that I'm aware of, council, unless you have any. I know we have a few needs, so we'll talk about those offline. Michelle, I know we've got a few, so that's it on that.
Okay.
I know we don't have any minutes to approve. If we could, due to time constraints, I'd like to, unless there are any significant reports from the council members or city manager, I'd like to defer those to the next time. I don't believe we need a closed session.
We do have one item, Mayor, that Sean would like to discuss, ongoing litigation.
I think,
And if we're short on time, Mayor, then we'll have to,
could we wait till next week?
we'll wait till next week then.
Well, next week we will be having a,
We can still have a closed
Yeah.
if we need
Yep.
one next week. We'll
Okay.
put it on
we'll be
the
having a
agenda.
work meeting next week, so.
Okay.
If we could, and then I believe we need to go into the redevelopment
We do.
agency.
Yes, we can do
So
that.
I need a motion to do that. It'll be quick.
Right.
We can do it in one motion.
Motion to adjourn and to convene, thank you, into the Neighborhood Redevelopment Agency meeting.
Motion by Jimmy, second by Michelle. Any discussion? All in favor, starting with Joe, say aye.
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 Motion carries.
Okay,
Yep.
okay.
See you, Bozeman's.
Okay, so as you're aware, the city has a separate neighborhood redevelopment agency, and we do have to have all the budget and any amendments to the budget under that separate meeting. And so this is just really quick in that there's two items. And first of all, they're kind of just housekeeping items that we've discussed. But the first one is to create a budget for the Fort Pierce CDA number 2. As you'll remember, that's where the Environmental Stoneworks and Industrial Brush Company came in, and we did approve the budget document that was as part of that creation documents, and we created and we approved the plan and the interlocal and so forth. But this is just a formality that within our own budget to budget for the revenues and the incentive agreements for the remainder of this fiscal year. And so that would just be personal property taxes, and we are estimating that would be $30,000 in revenue. And then based upon the percentages of economic incentives, that would be about $26,000, and then $4,000 for professional services if need be. So that's budget item number 1, to request $30,000 for the Fort Pierce CDA number 2. And then item number 2 is for the Dixie Center EDA. And as part of the development and the hotels, we did have a professional engineer design the erosion and the landscape strip. And so the amount that we're looking at right now is a request for $74,000, and that also includes Questar was also in the area installing a line, and we as developers needed to participate in that line, and that's what that $20,000 covers. And just so as a formality, we need to present these budget openings to you and also have a budget, a public hearing regarding these requests.
Okay. Any questions before we open the public hearing? Not for them. All right, we'll open the public hearing to consider amendments to the fiscal year 2014-15 budget for the Neighborhood Redevelopment Agency of the City of St. George.
Do you need to set a time limit on comments?
Yes. Maximum of 30 minutes per person. Deputy Chief? Any questions, any comments? No? Okay, well, Maury? All right, we'll close the public hearing. No? No for you? All right, we'll close the public hearing and come back to you, council, for your action, which would be, again, as Deanna explained, the resolution amending the fiscal year 2014-15 budget, as has been explained.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Gill, second by rock, paper, scissors. Michelle? Any discussion? All in favor? This is resolution, starting with Michelle. Say aye.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, and we are just requesting that we table item number 3 for the minutes held. They have not been reviewed at this point to bring them forward to you, so we'll go ahead and postpone that to the next meeting for the
Table
RDA.
to the next meeting?
Yes.
Motion to approve tabling the minutes, approval of the minutes held on June 4th, 2015.
Okay, motion by Jimmy, second by Joe to table the considering of the approval for the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I would entertain a motion to adjourn from the Neighborhood Redevelopment Agency and adjourn from City Council meeting.
Second.
Motion by Michelle and a second by Jimmy. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting with Michelle, say aye.
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 Motion carries. We are adjourned from both meetings. I've got to